Chapter 36. Sir, how much are you willing to pay? Tung Yunlong laughed as he looked at the leader. The leader laughed lightly and said, You will be responsible for the materials. The price will be 100 taels of silver for one frost jade saber. I believe you will have no problem with that. 100 taels of silver? Tung Yunlong frowned. Although 100 taels of silver was a large amount, the frost jade saber was a unique skill of Tung Jia village. The materials were expensive, and the difficulty of forging it was very high. If sold outside, it would be worth at least 100 taels of silver. If it was sold for 100 taels of silver, the profit would be too little. Sir, isn't that too little? Tung Yongfan said. The leader sneered. All right, don't treat us like fools. If we offered a high price, we wouldn't have to come here personally. 100 taels of silver, do you accept or not? Yes. Tung Yunlong squeezed out a smile and said, Sir, it's only 182 frost jade sabers. Tung Jia village has never accepted such a big deal before. The materials stored in the village are only enough to forge 2 frost jade sabers. The materials will cost a lot of money. Sir, why don't you give us the money first? We haven't gotten the item yet, and we're giving you the money? The leader sneered. Tung Qingshan, who was quietly watching from the side, was shocked. Does this leader not want to pay? 100 taels of silver for one saber is a big deal worth nearly 20,000 taels of silver. Even if the village took out all the money they had, they would barely be able to raise the money. Does this leader want to use force? Tung Qingshan was ready to act to prevent the worst from happening. Sir, you must be joking. Tung Jia village is just an ordinary village. How much money can we have? We can't even buy the materials, so how can we forge weapons for you? Tung Yunlong laughed. Sir, please understand our difficulties. The leader's face darkened. Tung Yongfan, who was at the side, laughed. Sir, with your status, are you worried that an ordinary village will steal your money? Tung Jia village has been here for generations, so it is impossible for us to escape. Sir, please pay us the money first. When the time comes, we will give you the frost jade sabers. The leader hesitated for a moment and then sneered. I'm afraid it will be difficult for your poor manor to gather the money. As he spoke, he took out a stack of banknotes and threw them on the table. There are 8,000 taels of silver banknotes with the Yangzhou bank seal on them. You all can examine them carefully. The Black Fox Fur Coat leader said. Yangzhou Bank? Tung Qingshan looked at it carefully. This was the first time he had seen a banknote. On the banknote, there was a big seal with the words Yang Yin, and on top of it, there were also complicated numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4. At the bottom, there was a line of words. The 8 major sects of the 9 regions have decreed that those who forge banknotes will be killed without mercy. Tung Qingshan was shocked when he saw this. The 8 great sects of the 9 prefectures? There are 8 of the strongest sects in the 9 prefectures? Silver notes? This. Tung Yunlong frowned. My lord, you have to pay money when you go to the bank. Furthermore, this business deal involved nearly 20,000 silver taels. This amount of money was far from enough. We're just a small village, I'm afraid. Tung Yunlong said hesitantly. The leader stood up with a whoosh, his face gloomy. 8,000 silver taels. Not even copper coin more. We'll write a written receipt. When the time comes, you go to East City to deliver the goods and we'll pay the rest. The leader said coldly. The 2 subordinates behind the leader also put their hands on the hilts of the long sabers at their waists. Many cavalrymen outside the courtyard also stared at the courtyard like tigers watching their prey. Tung Qingshan secretly took a deep breath and was ready to act at any time. Tung Yunlong and Tung Yongfan looked at each other. Since my lord has said so, we'll write a written receipt. Tung Yunlong laughed. That's right. The leader smiled. Both sides immediately signed and made a written receipt. On it, the delivery place, time, payment, and so on were stated in detail. Yeah, my lord, you want us to deliver the goods to East City's Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce? Tung Yunlong said in surprise. So my lords are from Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce. It's good that you know. Don't play any tricks with us. Also, when the time comes, we'll check every frost jade saber. If there's a problem with the quality, After the leader finished speaking, He took the written receipt and directly strode out of the courtyard. "Brothers, let's go." Under the command, the group of cavalrymen majestically rushed out. "Father, what's going on with this Yangzhou bank?" Tung Qingshan looked at the silver tails in confusion. Tung Yongfan smiled and explained, "Qingshan, in this world of the 9 prefectures, the richest are the Yangzhou salt merchants and the Yuzhou merchants. After all, Yangzhou and Yuzhou are the 2 most prosperous states in the 9 prefectures. Therefore, in this world, there were only 2 banks that were truly trustworthy. One was the Yang State Bank, and the other was the Yu State Bank. Only the silver tails of these 2 banks can travel unhindered in the world. Of course, we don't accept silver tails." "Why?" Tung Qingshan was puzzled. Weren't silver tails convenient to store? These silver tails are actually the proof of exchange obtained by storing gold and silver in the banks. These silver tails have special serial numbers and special craftsmanship. They prevent forgery. Since the banks help you store money, they naturally have to collect a certain amount of money. Therefore, even though these 8,000 taels of silver tails seem to be banknotes, when I go to collect them, I won't be able to get that much. Tung Qingshan understood. In modern society, saving money had interest, but in ancient times, saving money required payment. This was understandable. In ancient society, when merchants did business, it was troublesome to carry large amounts of gold and silver. Silver taels were easier to carry, easier to hide, and safer. "Don't tell me that no one counterfeits silver tails?" Tung Qingshan asked. Grandfather Tung Yunlong laughed. "Huh? Who would dare? Didn't you read the next sentence? The 8 great sects of the 9 prefectures have decreed that anyone who counterfeits silver tails will be killed without mercy." "We're the 8 great sects?" Tung Qingshan asked. Tung Yongfan explained, "Qingshan, I told you in the past that in Yangzhou, the strongest sect is Qinghu Island. In the other 8 prefectures, there are also super sections. In this world, there are 8 great powers, and they're called the 8 great sections. If anyone disobeys their joint decree, they will have nowhere to run in this world. In the 9 prefectures, there were only 8. It seemed that one of the prefectures didn't have any super sections. In other words, one super sect controlled 2 prefectures. The 8 great sects are like the 8 great feudal lords." Tung Qingshan thought to himself. The sects were the strongest forces in this world. Each sect had a powerful army. Even the Gui Yuan sect had 6,000 black armored corps. What about the 8 great sects? Yangzhou salt merchants are rich and have many experts under them. They aren't afraid of us embezzling this money. Tung Yunlong sneered and turned to look at Tung Yongfan. He instructed, "Yongfan, tonight, secretly go to Old Third Wang and place an order. Tell him to tell his boss the materials we want to buy. Tell his boss to send the materials over quickly." "Don't worry." Tung Yongfan nodded. "The most troublesome thing now is time." Tung Yongfan frowned and said, "Master, there is still more than a month. It is really difficult to forge 182 frost jade sabers. Moreover, the other brothers don't know how to forge frost jade sabers. No one in the clan can help." "It's okay. Once the materials arrive, I will forge with you," Tung Yunlong said. "Master," Tung Yongfan was shocked. "What? Do you think I'm too old?" Tung Yunlong laughed. Tung Yunlong was already over 60 years old. His physical strength and energy were declining. Forging frost jade sabers required high arm strength and skills. "Don't worry, I am just helping. When the time comes, you will have to forge most of the 182 frost jade sabers," Tung Yunlong said. "Okay." Tung Yongfan immediately turned to look at Qingshan. "Qingshan, I have something for you to do. Tomorrow, you will lead your hunting team into the mountains again. Go to the Frost Jade Pool to get some water." "Where's the Frost Jade Pool?" Tung Qingshan asked doubtfully. However, Tung Qingshan guessed that the Frost Jade Sabers and the Frost Jade Pool were related. "Don't worry. Qinghu and the other old members know. Tell them, and they will bring you there. The quenching agent used to forge Frost Jade Sabers must be the water from the Frost Jade Pool. Bring 2 water tanks there and fill them up." Tung Qingshan knew nothing about forging. He only nodded and said, "Don't worry, father. This business had a great impact on the clan. After all, it was worth nearly 20,000 taels of silver. The Tungjia village didn't dare to relax. Early the next morning, Tung Qingshan led the hunting team into the mountains. Qingshan, the people of Tungjia village can eat well and wear well. We rely on the frost jade sabers. In the Great Yin Mountain, Tung Qinghu smiled and explained, the forging of the frost jade sabers depends on the forging technique and the water of the frost jade pool. Qingshan, you don't know, the water of the frost jade pool is really cold. Tung Qingshan was slightly surprised. Even in the summer, the water is cold, much colder than the ice and snow in winter. However, the strange thing is that it doesn't freeze. Another clansman said, using this water to quench weapons will make them sharp and tough. If you put your hand into the cold pool, your hand will immediately go numb. Last time, I chased a wild chicken and it fell in. Once it fell in, it froze to death. It couldn't climb up at all. The surrounding clansmen talked one after another. Obviously, they had all seen the magic of the frost jade pool. So magical? Tung Qingshan was very surprised. Chapter 37. Qingshan, climb the double-headed mountain in front, and you will see the frost jade pool. Tung Qinghu pointed at a mountain in front of them. After hearing so much, Tung Qingshan became even more curious and thought, it's so magical. I really want to see it. The group of hunters advanced quickly. Having lived in the mountains for a long time, the Great Yin Mountain was like their own backyard. They could easily know which places were safe and which places were dangerous. As the saying goes, looking at the mountain runs the horse to death. Although the double-headed mountain was only a small mountain, it was still quite a distance away from Tung Qingshan's group. After walking for almost an hour, the group finally climbed to the top of the double-headed mountain. The wind at the top of the mountain was very strong, but it was very comfortable. Qingshan, the pool on the mountainside, is the frost jade pool. Tung Qinghu immediately pointed downwards. Tung Qingshan looked in the direction that Tung Qinghu pointed. There was indeed a white light on the mountainside. After looking carefully, he could tell that it was the surface of the water. Let's go down. Tung Qingshan took the lead and went down the mountain. With a single leap, Tung Qingshan jumped down from a rock that was 5 to 6 meters high and landed on the flat ground halfway up the mountain. He had finally arrived at the location of the frost jade pool. This place is really cold. Tung Qingshan exclaimed, I am still 7 to 8 meters away from the edge of the frost jade pool, but I can still feel the temperature around me dropping. The temperature is definitely below zero. Ha! The other clansmen also arrived. Tung Yonghao laughed loudly and said, Qingshan, how is it? You feel cold, right? We are still 3 zhang away from the edge of the pool. Moreover, the feeling right now is not that strong. If you came here in the hot summer, you would have to wear a cotton padded jacket in this place, even though it is extremely hot in other places. Tung Qingshan exclaimed, nature is really magical. Hey, brothers, let's start filling the water tanks. The other clansmen immediately filled the water tanks. Phew, it's so cold. The clansmen who threw the water tanks into the water couldn't help but sigh. Tung Qingshan carefully observed the water of the frost jade pool. The water of the pool was very clear. If one were to look carefully, they would be able to discover that the entire surface of the lake was suffused with an extremely weak purple color. If he just scooped up the water, he wouldn't be able to find any color at all. The water was still clear. Squatting beside the pond, Tung Qingshan could feel a chill rushing towards his face. He reached his hand into the pond, and his hand instantly became numb from the cold. Chi! Tung Qingshan gasped. It's really cold. It's at least negative 50 to 60 degrees. In his previous life, Tung Qingshan had lived in the most desolate place in Siberia and received hellish training. It was normal for it to be negative 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. The coldest time, it had been negative 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. However, the area where Tungjia village was located was in the middle of winter, and the temperature was at most a few degrees below zero. The water was unexpectedly cold to this extent. It was inconceivable. Beside him, Tung Ching, who saw Tung Ching Shan put his hand into the water and couldn't help but exclaim, Ching Shan, don't put your hand in. You'll freeze. It's okay. Tung Ching Shan smiled. The muscles in his hand trembled, and his inner strength flowed, easily dispelling the chill. Experts of the internal martial arts were not afraid of the cold. It was normal for them to wear an unlined garment in winter. Uncles fill up the water tanks first, then go to the side and rest for a while. We'll set off later. After Tung Ching Shan finished speaking, he once again focused his attention on the frost jade pool. The frost jade pool itself was 3 zhang wide and 5 to 6 zhang long. This water is so cold. How can it be used as a quenching agent? Although he knew nothing about forging weapons, he had seen the scene of forging weapons and then putting them into water. If an extremely hot weapon is put into such cold water, won't the weapon shatter due to the intense change in temperature? Tung Ching Shan thought to himself. If his word were known by the weaponsmiths, they would probably die of laughter. There were many ways to truly quench, such as partial quenching, pre-cooling quenching, air quenching, multiple types of quenching agents, and so on. Let alone the water of the frost jade pool. Even the coldest water could be used by weaponsmiths as a quenching agent. However, the colder the quenching agent, the better the quenching agent. It needed to be suitable. Different weapon materials, forging methods, and unique quenching agents would form unique weapons. The frost jade saber was created by the ancestors of Tongjia village over 1,000 years. Aside from Tongjia village, there was no other place that could forge the frost jade saber. I'm just a layman, so I shouldn't think too much. Since Father and the others want to use this water as a quenching agent, there must be a way to use it. Tung Ching Shan stopped thinking about it. However, this water is so cold. When I start my strongest plan, I can use the frost jade pool to stimulate my body. Tung Ching Shan's eyes lit up. When his body produced inner strength at the age of 3, Tung Ching Shan formulated a training plan for himself. When he was just born, it was to train his flexibility. At the age of 3, he started to practice Xing martial arts. He used inner strength to continuously stimulate his bones and strengthen his muscles. This stage would continue until he was about 10 years old. In Tung Ching Shan's plan, the most important part was the strongest plan. The stage of the strongest plan was the puberty stage. The puberty stage of the human body usually started for boys around the age of 10. Of course, there were some boys who started at the age of 14 or 15. During this puberty stage, the bones and muscles of the whole body would advance by leaps and bounds. It was an extremely shocking improvement. It was normal for a boy to grow 20 centimeters in a year. This was the stage where the human body grew the fastest. Tung Ching Shan's strongest plan was formulated based on the principle that the body would advance by leaps and bounds during puberty. In my previous life, I had to undergo hellish training in Siberia from the age of 7, squeezing out too much of my potential. When I arrived at Master's place, Master only told me to focus on nurturing so that I could make up for the deficit in my body. I only relied on various medicinal herbs to practice a pair of iron sand palms. I didn't dare to practice more. The puberty stage of the human body was a natural gift from heaven and earth. It was very magical. For ordinary people, if they liked to exercise during the puberty stage, it was normal for them to grow 10 or 20 centimeters taller. However, if they didn't eat well during the puberty stage, they would be malnourished and their body would not grow well. When they were in their 20s, no matter how good the food, it would be difficult to make up for it. The puberty stage was the best time to strengthen and transform the body. Of course, if one didn't have 100% certainty and randomly forced training, it would only lead to excessive training. The body wouldn't be able to bear it and leave behind a lifetime of regret. The puberty stage of the human body is a gift from heaven. It is the best time to change and strengthen the body. If you miss it, there will be no more. In my previous life, because the amount of energy required to practice the iron sand palms was too much, it required the assistance of various medicinal herbs. Otherwise, before I could master the iron sand palms, my palms would be crippled. Tung Ching Shan was very clear about the dangers of strengthening the body during the puberty stage. In my previous life, I needed external medicinal herbs, but in this life, I don't need them. Tang Qingshan was full of confidence. Since I was 3 years old, my inner strength has been stimulating and fusing into my bones and muscles. Now, the strength of my bones and muscles far exceeds that of an ordinary adult. I can completely carry out my strongest plan. Moreover, the medicinal herbs are fused from the outside. But now my inner strength is vigorous. I can completely use inner strength to replenish the energy consumed for the transformation of my bones and muscles. To strengthen the bones and muscles, they needed energy. What is energy? When ordinary people grow, their appetite increases greatly. This is because they need to consume a large amount of energy. And when a martial artist practiced the iron sand palms, the bones and muscles in his palms would consume a lot of energy. Just the energy from eating was not enough, so he needed the assistance of medicinal herbs. And the medicinal herbs were, after all, an external force. Of course, it was not as good as the internal inner strength. It was just that in his previous life, there were too few people who could practice inner strength. Moreover, even if they refined blood essence and obtained a bit of inner strength, but that little bit of inner strength was too little. After all, it was the inner strength of a grandmaster. Performing the crossing worlds once consumed all of the inner strength. One could imagine the scarcity of inner strength. This little bit of inner strength was not enough to support the strongest plan by 1% or even 1,000th of the inner strength consumed. However, it was different now. In this ancient world, Tang Qingshan had an abundance of spiritual qi of heaven and earth. He had what the grandmasters in his previous life considered as a huge amount of inner strength. Moreover, his ability to control his bones and muscles was also extremely high. He could completely feel the changes in his bones and muscles. During the puberty period, he could appropriately adjust the plan so that everything was under his control. He was 100% sure that this strongest plan would succeed. More than 80% of the human body's strength and bones are formed during the puberty period. If I can perfectly carry out the strongest plan, then my body will be stronger than any grandmaster in my previous life. I will reach the highest peak in the history of internal martial arts. Tang Qingshan's heart was boiling. After all, how much inner strength did the grandmasters in the history of internal martial arts have? It was simply impossible for them to carry out the extravagant strongest plan. Moreover, by the time they cultivated inner strength, they would have already passed the puberty period. Only Tang Qingshan had inner strength at the age of 3. After nearly 7 years of preparation, once he carried out the strongest plan, once the puberty period was over, his body would reach an unprecedentedly terrifying level. I'm almost 10 years old, and I also feel that the changes in my bones and muscles seem to be speeding up. With Tang Qingshan's ability to control his bones and muscles, he could feel this kind of change. In fact, when the puberty period reached the peak, even an ordinary person could feel the changes in their body. In the beginning, ordinary people could not feel it, but Tang Qingshan, a Xingyi grandmaster, could feel it. After the annual sacrifice, I will carry out the strongest plan, Tang Qingshan silently said in his heart. Qingshan. One of the clansmen next to him shouted, "Shouldn't we go back?" Tang Qingshan glanced at the frost jade pool and immediately looked at the clansman with a smile. Each water tank weighs 400 to 500 jin. Brother Qinghao and Brother Qinghu, you two carry it first. Halfway through, I will take turns to replace you. All right, let's go home now. Carrying it back to the clan is a small matter. Tang Qinghu smiled proudly. At the age of 9, Tang Qinghu could lift 300 jin. Now, he was only a month away from turning 16, but he already had the strength of 1,000 jin. As for Tang Qinghao, who was already an adult, he was only slightly weaker. Don't brag. If you give up halfway, you will lose face. The clansmen of the hunter squad chatted and laughed along the way as they descended the mountain. P.S. The first episode of the second chapter ends. Chapter 38. Qingshan, you're back. The gate of Tung Jia village opened, and the guards greeted him warmly. Tung Ching Shan, who was carrying 2 pheasants in his hands, smiled and said, "Yes, I'm back. Uncle Fong, we really got some game today. You guys will have some food to go with the wine tonight." The main purpose of entering the mountain this time was to get water. Of course, on the way back and forth, they also hunted some game. Each family in the village could get about 1 gene of meat. Once he entered the training field, Tung Qingshan frowned. On the ground, one could still vaguely see the depressions of the wheel tracks. This martial arts field had been trampled all year round, so it was very hard. To be able to leave wheel tracks on the martial arts field, one could imagine the weight of the car. Tung Qingshan turned his head and asked the young man next to him, "Sanzi, who came to the village today?" The young man said, "Brother Qingshan, just now, there was a team of nearly 100 people escorting 1 or 2 wagons pulled by horses. Now, those people have all gone to the weapons shop." Hearing this, Tung Qingshan guessed in his heart. That team was probably the team that was escorting the ores used to forge the 182 frost jade sabers. Brother, a clear voice rang out. Tung Qingshan turned his head and saw that it was his mother and sister, Qingyu. Qingyu was running very happily now. She ran over and hugged Tung Qingshan. She then stared at the pheasants in Tung Qingshan's hands and said, "Brother, we have chicken to eat today. There are 2 of them. Mother, take these pheasants back. I'll go to father's place to take a look." Tung Qingshan handed the 2 pheasants to his mother, Yuan Lan. "Okay, your father's coming days will be very hard. He needs to eat more to nourish his body." Yuan Lan took the 2 pheasants. The distribution of food in the village was based on each family's contribution. Of course, even the family that contributed the least would get the least amount of meat. As for Tung Qingshan's family, Tung Qingshan was the #1 blacksmith in the family, and his son Ting Qingshan was the #1 expert in the family and the leader of the hunting team. Naturally, there would be more food to be distributed. These 2 pheasants were the ones that Tung Qingshan planned to bring back home. "Brother, I want to play with you too." Qingyu hugged Tung Qingshan's hand. His mother, Yuan Lan, smiled and said, "Qingshan, bring your sister to your father's place to play, but come back for lunch later." Tung Qingshan responded and held his sister's little hand. Together with Tung Qinghu and Tung Qinghao, they walked towards their father's weapon shop. "Brother Qinghu, Brother Qinghao." On the way, Tung Qingshan saw a car and a large number of people in front of the weapon shop from afar. He said, "You could take a detour and enter from the back door of the weapon shop. Just send the water tank in." Understood. Although it was fine for outsiders to see the water tank, Tung Qinghu and Tung Qinghao knew that it was better to keep it a secret. At this time, the weapon shop was very lively. Many apprentices were carrying all kinds of materials. In the corner of the weapon shop's courtyard, 4 people were sitting at a wooden table. They were Tung Yongfan, Tung Yunlong, and 2 other strangers. One of them was tall and strong and looked very fierce. The other one had a big belly and was very fat. This Depang was wearing a yellow fox fur coat, and the golden ring on his thumb was shining. "Qingshan, you're here." Tung Yunlong, who was sitting in the middle of the weapon shop's courtyard, smiled and greeted. Qingyu called out crisply, "Father, grandfather." At the same time, she ran towards them. "Yongfan, is this your daughter? She's so cute." The Depang said happily. Tung Yongfan smiled and nodded. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and carried Qingyu on his lap. The Depang continued, "Chief Tung Yongfan, we have been doing business for a long time. You should know that the price I gave you is not high. 13,000 taels of silver. I've already taken the odd part out." "Lier," Tung Yunlong said with a smile, "we are all old friends. I, Tung Yunlong, never lie. Moreover, you should also understand. How could an ordinary person give us such a big business deal?" Those people personally came to Tongjia village to lower the price. Tongjia village had no choice but to accept it. "If you lower the price a little, we'll be able to make a little profit." The Depang thought for a while. "Okay." The Depang's right hand, which was wearing the golden ring, slammed the table and said straightforwardly, "Since we have been friends for so many years, I understand your difficulties. Let's not talk nonsense. 12,500 taels of silver. This is the lowest, not even a copper coin lower. Tung Yunlong and Tung Yongfan looked at each other. Okay, Tung Yunlong nodded. I will ask someone to get the silver. Saying this, Tung Yunlong smiled and nodded to Tung Yongfan, who stood beside him, and Tung Yongfan personally went to get the silver. Tung Qingshan shot a glance at the sturdy man sitting beside the fat man. This man has a pair of spirited eyes, and the strength of his muscles and bones are extremely strong. He is a pretty good expert. However, compared to the leader of the cavalry team, who came yesterday, he is far inferior. At this time, Tung Yongfan personally came over with a box. Pung! The box fell to the ground. Lier, there is 4,500 taels of silver inside. I have 8,000 taels of silver here. Saying this, Tung Yunlong handed over the banknotes. Banknotes? The expression of the fat man, called Li Er, changed slightly. He frowned and glanced at the banknote. When he saw the two words, Yang Yin, stamped on the banknote, his expression became slightly better. Old Chief Tung, these are 8,000 taels of silver. If I go to Yangzhou Bank to withdraw silver, I'll have to pay 80 taels of silver. 101. This was the rate that Yangzhou Bank charged. Tung Yunlong smiled bitterly and said, Lier, how would our Tungjia village have banknotes? It's because of the person who placed the order. He only gave us 8,000 taels of silver. I was worried that he wouldn't pay the rest of the payment. Sai, who asked our small village to be so easily bullied. Lier, please bear with us. Pang stood up and sighed. Forget it, I won't argue. We're doing business, so we need to deposit silver into the bank. Forget it. Are you clear? It's 4,500 taels of silver. The sturdy man who opened the box and counted the silver nodded. That's good. Pang glanced at Tung Yunlong and said, Chief Tung, Brother Yongfan, then our business is done. I'll take my leave first. Tung Yunlong immediately stood up and saw the group of people off. After the group of people left, the weapon shop became much quieter. Tung Qingshan looked at his father, Tung Yongfan, and asked, Father, is this business a loss? If we can get the rest of the payment, it's not a loss. Tung Yongfan said, 182 frost jade sabers are worth 18,200 taels of silver. Just the materials alone cost us 12,500 taels of silver. Including the other special materials in the manor, the total cost is almost 2,000 taels of silver. Plus, the water of the frost jade pool. There's also the cost of manpower. Tung Qingshan nodded. Just the cost of the materials alone was 14,500 taels of silver. The water of the frost jade pool was worthless to Tung Jia village, but to people who didn't know the location of the frost jade pool, it was a priceless treasure. Tung Yongfan and Tung Yunlong would be working hard for more than a month. Even if they got the rest of the payment, they would only make a small profit. Those salt merchants don't be fooled by their wealth, but when it comes to business, they are very stingy. Otherwise, why would they personally come here to order? Tung Yongfan sneered. Will we not get the rest of the payment? Tung Qingshan frowned. Tung Yongfan thought for a while and shook his head. Although I'm a bit worried, but it shouldn't be. First, the other party is a Yangzhou salt merchant. Their status is different, so they probably won't cheat us. Second, with their strength, they don't need to play tricks. They could just force us to forge weapons and kill us if we don't forge. Isn't this more straightforward? Tung Qingshan nodded. His father's words were reasonable, but the other party had an absolute advantage. Tung Jia village was still worried that the other party would cheat. Qingshan, from today onwards, until all the frost jade sabers are forged, I will stay in this weapon shop every night. Help your mother with the family matters. Qingyu is still immature, and your mother has to do things and take care of Qingyu. It will be very tiring. Tung Yongfan said. Tung Qingshan nodded. His sister Qingyu was only 6 years old and didn't have the memories of his previous life. It was normal for her to be immature. In the following days, his father, Tung Yongfan, and the chief, Tung Yunlong, lived in the weapon shop. Sometimes they were so busy that they didn't even have time to eat at home. They could only ask the family to send food over. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 days left until the annual sacrifice. Ching Shan, the chief wants you to go to the weapon shop. The moment Ting Ching Shan returned with the hunting team, the clansman immediately informed him. Got it. Tung Ching Shan handed the game in his hand to Tung Chinghu. Chinghu, you guys divide the game. Tung Ching Shan held the Damascus steel spear and ran towards the weapon shop. Halfway there, he could hear the clanking sounds of iron being hammered from the armory. He stepped into the weapon shop. Ching Shan is here. Many apprentices greeted him with a smile. Tung Ching Shan noticed that his father, Tung Yong Fan, was bare-chested and waving the iron hammer. Ching Shan, come here. Sitting in the courtyard, Tung Yunlong, wearing only a robe, was panting. His face was covered with sweat. Seeing Tung Ching Shan walk over, he laughed at himself and said, I'm getting old. It's only been an hour, and I'm already exhausted. I still have to rely on your father. Tung Ching Shan smiled and sat down. Grandfather, most of the young men in the clan don't even have the arm strength to forge frost jade sabers. You're very good. Tung Yunlong laughed. You only know how to say nice things. All right, Ching Shan, I came to you today to tell you something. He estimated that the 182 frost jade sabers would be completed by the end of the night. Tomorrow is the 26th of the 12th lunar month. It's a good day to go out. Your hunting team will pretend to be selling beast fur in the city and send the 182 frost jade sabers into the city. When the time comes, your father will accompany you. Chapter 39. No problem. Tung Ching Shan replied. Tung Yunlong hastily reminded. Prepare some wild beast pelts to wrap around the frost jade saber. Hunters will go into the city to sell the beast pelts. This shouldn't attract the attention of the bandits. Tung Yunlong attached great importance to this business. After all, it involved a large amount of silver. Perhaps it was only a drop in the ocean for the salt merchants, but for Tung Jia village, it was the entire village's strength. Grandfather, don't worry. I will kill whoever dares to touch the frost jade sabers. Tung Ching Shan said. Good. Tung Yunlong smiled and patted Tung Ching Shan's shoulder. He then stood up and said, Okay, I have to go with your father. You can go back first. Later, tell your mother to bring lunch to your father. Okay. Tung Ching Shan glanced at his father, who was focused on forging weapons. He then turned around and walked out of the weapon shop. The next morning, the sky was still dark. Most people in Tongjia village had not woken up yet. The members of the hunting squad, the chief of Tongjia village, the spearmaster, and some other important members gathered outside the weapon shop. Bundle 10 frost jade sabers into 18 bundles. The last bundle has 12 frost jade sabers. Tung Yong Fan commanded from the side. Ching Shan, all of you use the furs of wild beasts to wrap each bundle of frost jade sabers. Then put them into a cloth bag. Make sure that they don't look like weapons from the outside. The members of the hunting squad carefully wrapped the sabers. He took out a large amount of furs and skins that he had obtained from hunting wild beasts in the past. In a short while, all 182 frost jade sabers were packed. Yong Fan, Ching Shan. Tung Yunlong walked over and looked at the two. You must be careful on the road. Don't let anything go wrong. Yes, grandfather. Tung Ching Shan smiled. Tung Yong Fan also said, Master, just wait for the silver we bring back. Ching Shan, let's go. Tung Ching Shan said. Tung Ching Shan immediately gave an order. The members of the hunter squad held sharp spears, and some of them carried bows and arrows on their backs. The group of people then left. Tung Yunlong, Tung Yongxiang, and the other clansmen watched this scene from afar. They could only hope that their journey would be smooth. After walking for an hour, the sky was completely bright. On the wide road, the hunters of Tung Jia village vigilantly paid attention to their surroundings as they advanced with large strides. Dad, look! Tung Ching Shan pointed to the front. There were corpses on the side of the road in the distance. Everyone, be careful. Tung Yong Fan shouted in a low voice. At the same time, the group of people continued to move forward carefully. As they got closer, everyone could see clearly that there were a total of 12 corpses. All of them were men. The dried bloodstains had already turned black. These 12 people had long been robbed clean. They were robbed. Looking at the corpses, it must have happened last night. Tung Yong Fan glanced at the corpses. All right, stop looking. Let's keep going. Tung Ching Shan asked as he walked. Father, no one collected their bodies. Of course someone collected the corpses. So many people die in this world every day. No one collected the corpses and burned them, causing a plague. Tung Yong Fan looked at the corpses, but his emotions didn't change at all. He smiled faintly and said, This place belongs to a village. When the people of that village come out to farm and discover this, they will naturally collect the corpses. Tung Ching Shan frowned and said, Bandits are so rampant. We won't meet any bandits on the way, right? Ching Shan, a middle-aged man beside him, smiled and said, When bandits kill, they also look at the target. If the target is small in number and rich, of course they will rob. If the target is large in number and has a large amount of gold and silver, they will probably join forces and rob. But for poor hunters like us, we can see that they don't have much money. Moreover, to kill hunters like us, they will kill more of them. It's not worth it. They won't do it. Tung Ching Shan secretly nodded. Bandits would also calculate whether it was worth it or not. Poor hunters with little gold and silver were extremely difficult to deal with. Bandits would rarely provoke them. Let's go quickly. It's better to enter the city as soon as possible, Tung Yong Fan said. As they moved forward, they could gradually see people working on the fields on both sides of the road. Tung Jia village wasn't too far from Yi City, but it wasn't too close either. If one relied on 2 legs, it would normally take about 4 hours to arrive. Outside the city gate of Yi City, a team of hunters wearing animal skins appeared. It was Tung Ching Shan and his group. They set off before the sky was bright. Now, the sky and the earth were already bright, and Tung Ching Shan and his group finally arrived at Yi City. Fortunately, they didn't encounter any bandits along the way. We're finally here. A smile appeared on Tung Ching Shan's face. This was his first time entering the city. Because the world was too chaotic, the children in the village didn't have the opportunity to enter the city. 2 copper coins per person. The guard at the city gate said lazily. The entrance fee was also collected according to the person. For hunters like these, who were barbaric and poor, the guard were too lazy to bother them. They would only collect the lowest entrance fee. After paying 62 copper coins, Tung Ching Shan and his group finally entered the city. Haha, the city is still lively. Tung Chinghu's eyes lit up. Ching Shan, look at how many people are on the street. There are vendors on both sides of the street, and you can't see the end of them. TSK, TSK. When did we see so many vendors in our village? There are so many fun things to do. Tung Ching Shan also felt the prosperity here. The hawkers were shouting, and some inns and restaurants were trying to attract customers. It was bustling with activity. Hey, in the city, don't fight unless it's necessary. Tung Yong Fan reminded, even if you encounter some bastards, you must fight. Remember, don't kill anyone. It's fine if you kill people outside the city, but if you kill people inside the city, if you run a little slower and get caught, you'll end up in jail. That's the end of your life. Everyone understood that the power of the government was only in charge of inside the city. As for outside the city, no matter how rampant the bandits were, the high and mighty lord of the city couldn't be bothered to deal with them. There weren't enough people to deal with them. This time, don't run around. After we sell the goods, we'll walk around a bit and then go back. Do you understand? Tung Yong Fan said. Understood. The clansmen all nodded. Usually, when they came to Yi City, they would have fun. After all, it was rare for them to enter the city. For example, they would go to the casino and play a few rounds. However, the amount of gold and silver involved in this delivery was too great. Everyone didn't dare to let their guard down. In a quiet and spacious street, there were very few people coming and going. Tung Ching Shan and his group were walking on this street. Beside him, Tung Chinghu smiled and said, Ching Shan, don't be fooled by the small number of people here. At night, this is the most bustling place in the whole of Yi City. Look, that 3-story building. Do you know what kind of place it is? Haha, you definitely won't be able to guess. The faces of the women in that place, are so tender. Each of them can even drip water if you pinch them. Huh. The clansmen at the side all laughed when they heard this. Ching-hu, have you really pinched those women before? Tung Yong-fan laughed and said. Tung Ching-hu rubbed his nose and said, This place is good, but it's too expensive. A cup of tea costs 1 tael of silver. It's said that if you want to find a woman, it's frighteningly expensive. Tung Yong-fan laughed and said, Ching-hu, think about it. The 3 brothels around here are the 3 best in East City. Moreover, they're built right next to the big merchant guilds. What do? Their customers are those rich merchants, not people like us. Ching-hu, if you want to have a taste of women, go to the tofu shop in front of the street. It's only a string of money. The clansman teased. Go. Tung Ching-hu laughed and scolded. I haven't married yet. Okay, stop talking. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild is right in front. Tung Yong-fan said. In Tung Chingshan's previous life, he lived in a modern society. He had seen too many big cities. In those big cities, it would take 1 to 2 hours to drive across the city. How could this East City compare? Of course, the buildings he saw in his previous life were all reinforced concrete buildings. However, the buildings here were full of ancient style. Looking at them, it had a different flavor. All the merchant guilds are in this area. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild occupies the largest area. Ting Yongfan pointed to the front and said, That's the Yangzhou Merchant Guild. Tung Qingshan glanced over and couldn't help but take a deep breath. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild's main door was more than 10 zhang wide. It could allow 20 to 30 people to walk side by side. The 2 tall green stone lions at the door glowed with a golden light, which increased its power. Tung Yongfan sighed and said, Qingshan, those 2 stone lions are made of lapis lazuli. They're so big. Each stone lion must weigh 10,000 jin. Just these 2 stone lions alone are worth thousands of taels of silver. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild was extremely rich. This was not a lie. All of you get lost. One of the 4 guards at the entrance of the Yangzhou Merchant Guild shouted at Tung Qingshan and the others. We are here to deliver the goods. Master Li from Jiangning County ordered the goods from us. Tung Yongfan said. Master Li from Jiangning County? One of the guards frowned and said, You guys wait here. I will go and inform them. Tung Qingshan and the group of people waited quietly at the entrance. After a short while, 2 men dressed in black ran over and swept a glance outside. After seeing Tung Yongfan, one of them said in a clear voice, You must be from Tungjia village. Come in. As he said this, he turned around and walked forward. Tung Qingshan and the group of people followed. Outside the Merchant Guild, the luxurious scenery was only the tip of the iceberg. Only after entering the interior would one know the life of a giant merchant. Wow! Tung Ching-hu's eyes widened. Tung Qingshan also took a deep breath. The road was paved with huge bluestones. How much manpower did it take to lay so many uniform bluestones? Many of the plants and flowers on the side were not native to East City. They were definitely transplanted here. There were also large ponds and other water systems on the side. There was even a man-made spring. Even the luxurious villas of the later generations can't compare to this. Tung Qingshan thought to himself. Moreover, this is only a merchant guild. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild was #1 in the world. Only the Yuzhou Merchant Guild could compete with them. The buildings inside the Merchant Guild were large mansions. All of you be careful. If you break the things here, you won't be able to afford it. A black-clothed man who was leading the way said, Also, some of the surrounding mansions are occupied. The people who live there are all big shots like our master. If you offend any one of them, don't even think about leaving here alive. Be careful. Yes, we understand, Tung Yongfan said with a smile. However, the clansmen were obviously more cautious. The Yangzhou Merchant Guild was a super rich organization that had connections with the 8 great sects of the 9 prefectures. If they killed some people, even the Lord of East City wouldn't care. This is the place. One of the men dressed in black said, For this kind of small business, just tell the housekeeper. Don't go through the main door. If you disturb the master, you will be in trouble. Follow me. We'll go through the back door. With this, They walked along the alley between the two large mansions and arrived at the back door of the mansion. There were many servants and guards living here. "Oh, you're here." The leader of the cavalrymen who went to Tungjia village to order goods was sitting on a chair with a golden blade. He glanced at Tung Qingshan's group and said, "Come in, take out the goods, and put them on the ground." Chapter 40. Take out the sabers. Tung Yongfan ordered. One by one, the clansmen untied the cloth bag from their backs and took out bundles of frost jade sabers from the animal skins. The bundles of frost jade sabers fell to the ground with a deep sound. The leader of the cavalrymen sat on a chair and arrogantly glanced at the frost jade sabers on the ground. Old Zhang carefully examined these frost jade sabers to prevent these mountain people from passing them off as good ones. "Yes, my lord." A tall, middle-aged man strode over and called out to the others. "Everyone, come over and carefully examine each saber." The ropes were untied. Clang! The frost jade sabers scattered on the ground. One by one, the guards carefully examined the frost jade sabers. The frost jade sabers glowed with a faint green light. Holding the handle, one could feel a burst of coolness. The blade was sharp, and it was definitely a good saber. "My lord." Old Zhang threw a frost jade saber to the leader of the cavalrymen. The leader took the frost jade saber and carefully examined it for a moment. He nodded slightly. "It seems to be okay. I wonder how it is used." "My lords, please rest assured." Tung Yongfan smiled confidently. "We have tested each frost jade saber before it was delivered to us. None of the frost jade sabers sold by Tungjia village are inferior. We will only know after we test it." The leader of the cavalrymen glanced at Old Zhang. Old Zhang understood tacitly. "Bring the wood." The guard named Old Zhang said in a clear voice. A large amount of firewood was carried over and thrown to the ground. The wood scattered on the ground. "Everyone, use the frost jade saber to chop the wood." "Try it," Old Zhang said. The guards used the frost jade sabers to chop at the wood. The wood cracked one by one, but none of the frost jade sabers were bent. Tung Yongfan saw this scene and sneered. The frost jade sabers were the consummate skills of Tungjia village. How could they be bad? The leader of the cavalrymen suddenly stood up and took a frost jade saber from a guard. He touched the blade with his right hand and his face darkened. The people of Tungjia village felt a knot in their hearts. "What's going on? Why is this saber bent?" The cavalry leader was furious. He threw the frost jade saber. With a clang, the frost jade saber landed in front of Tung Qingshan's group. "How is this possible?" Tung Yongfan hastily picked it up. The surrounding clansmen took a look. Indeed, the frost jade saber was bent. Tung Yongfan's expression changed drastically. According to the written contract, once there was a quality problem, it would be troublesome. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Tung Yongfan hastily shook his head with an anxious expression on his face. "I've inspected every single one of them. How could this be? Impossible." The leader sneered. "Sir," Tung Qingshan's voice suddenly rang out. His voice was so loud that it could be heard from hundreds of feet away. The cavalry leader's expression changed, and he scolded, "Brat, lower your voice. If you disturb the master who is resting in front, all of you should prepare to go to jail." Tung Qingshan was almost 10 years old. He looked like a teenager. "Sir, do you know how to use inner strength? The legendary inner strength?" Tung Qingshan looked at the leader with an envious and excited expression. The leader was startled. "Just now, I saw your hand touch the frost jade saber. That sharp blade." Before Tung Qingshan could finish speaking, the leader's expression changed. He angrily scolded, "Brat, shut up." Tung Qingshan's face showed an innocent expression, but he was sneering in his heart. Others might not have seen it, but Tung Qingshan's 6 senses were very sensitive. He clearly noticed that the frost jade saber, which was originally in perfect condition, was curled up by the leader's touch. Actually, Tung Qingshan could also do this. If the power of inner strength was used on the blade from the side, it would be strange if the blade didn't curl up. Tung Qingshan could see that this leader obviously wanted to renege on the debt in a just and honorable manner and put the blame on them. "What's going on?" A voice sounded. A group of people walked out of the mansion. The leader was a middle-aged man wearing a black fur coat. His face was fair and clean, and it was obvious that he was a pampered middle-aged man. Beside him was a cute young lady with 2 braids that mischievously wore a white ferret fur coat. Behind them were 2 servants and 2 personal guards. Master. The group of people in the backyard immediately bowed. Oh, the Frost Jade Saber is here? Since it's here, quickly pay them and let them go. What's with all the noise? The middle-aged man frowned and said, Yes, master. The leader said, Hey, Chin-san, what were you arguing about? The naughty girl blinked her big eyes and asked suspiciously. She then looked curiously at the group of Tong clansmen who were wearing animal skins. The leader of the cavalrymen bowed and said, Miss, it's like this. We placed an order with them and the goods have been delivered. We were just inspecting the goods, but one of the Frost Jade Sabers is of average quality. The blade actually curled up when chopping wood. When the cute girl heard this, she looked at Tung Shan and the others and frowned. She snorted and said, 150 taels of silver for a Frost Jade Saber. It's so expensive that the blade actually curled up when chopping wood. How can we accept such a weapon? Tung Shan, Tung Yongfan, and the others were shocked. 150 taels of silver for a saber? However, the leader of the cavalrymen only ordered 100 taels of silver. Moreover, it seemed that he didn't even want to pay the rest. Chin-san, how are the other Frost Jade Sabers? The middle-aged man with a fair complexion said indifferently, The other Frost Jade Sabers are okay. The leader of the cavalrymen said, But I haven't looked at them carefully. Chinda, go take a look. The middle-aged man said. One of the 2 bodyguards behind him walked towards the Frost Jade Sabers and glared at the leader of the cavalrymen. He then picked up a Frost Jade Saber and casually played with it a few times. He turned his head and said, Master, these Frost Jade Sabers are not bad. They're definitely enough for ordinary bodyguards. That's good. Chin-san, pay them and let them leave quickly. It's so noisy. What is this? The middle-aged man said indifferently. He then looked at his daughter beside him and said, Let's go. We still have to visit your Uncle Lu today. It won't be good if we are late. Yes, father. The cute girl looked curiously at Tung Shan and the others before leaving with the middle-aged man. The bodyguard named Chinda walked in front of the cavalry leader and said in a low voice, Third junior brother, don't be greedy. It's not easy for these people to earn money. If you make a big deal out of it, the master will be angry. Don't blame me for not helping you. With that, Chinda left with the master. They don't give me any face. Seeing the group of people leave, the cavalry leader bitterly said, Big senior brother, Motherf asterisk her, always looking down on me. When I reach the 6th level, I won't need to listen to you anymore. Immediately, the cavalry leader coldly glanced at Tung Yongfan and the others. You mountain people, one of these Frost Jade Sabers is actually bent. However, I can't be bothered to argue with you. Old Zhang, give them 10,000 taels of silver and tell them to scram. The cavalry leader ordered. When Tung Shan heard this, he frowned. 10,000 taels of silver? The final payment for the goods this time was 10,200 taels of silver. The cavalry leader actually didn't want to pay 200 taels of silver. 200 taels of silver was not a small number. After all, Tongjia village didn't earn much from this business, including manpower and other expenses. The 200 taels of silver was not a small amount. My lord, Tung Yongfan was about to speak. The cavalry leader's eyes turned cold. Today, one of the Frost Jade Sabers was bent. I didn't settle the debt with you. If you continue to talk nonsense, I will cripple you. Scram. At this time, Old Zhang also took out 10,000 taels of silver and handed it to Tung Yongfan. Tung Yongfan took the silver and carefully looked at it. He then lowered his voice and said, Let's go. Although the men of Tongjia village were all courageous, they wouldn't use eggs to hit a rock. It wasn't worth it for everyone to risk their lives for 200 taels of silver. Everyone swallowed their anger and left the Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce. After leaving the Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce, the Tongjia clansmen couldn't help but curse. That Shin-san, what kind of joke is this? 150 taels of silver for a saber. He even didn't want to pay today. Tung Qinghu angrily cursed. If it wasn't for Qing Shan's loud voice that attracted the master, I'm afraid that Qin Sen wouldn't even be able to pay the final payment. Tung Qing Shan smiled and looked at Qing Shan. Qing Shan, how did you think of attracting the master's attention? I was anxious, that's why I shouted. Tung Qing Shan said with a smile. I just saw with my own eyes that the cavalry leader touched the blade of the saber, and the blade curled up. Although Tung Qing Shan said this, in reality, he was indeed shouting on purpose to attract the attention of the surrounding salt merchants. Even if it didn't attract the master of this mansion, it would still be considered a success if it attracted the attention of the surrounding salt merchants. Tung Yongfan, Tung Qinghu, and the others lived in the village all year round, so they didn't understand the thoughts of the salt merchants. However, Tung Qingshan was a super assassin in his previous life, so he understood the thoughts of the super rich and the upper echelons. To those people, money was a small matter, but face was a big matter. If the news spread, a certain salt merchant fought with a group of mountain people for a bit of silver. The salt merchant would probably become a laughingstock. Therefore, no matter what, within the Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce, the salt merchant wouldn't fight with them for a bit of silver. No matter what, this time was a daunting experience, but not a dangerous one. Tung Yongfan said with a smile. Qing Shan, this is your first time coming to East City. Before we go back, I'll take you to a place. I also want to go there to buy some things. Where? Tung Qing Shan was slightly curious. Wanxiang Tower, Tung Yongfan said. Chapter 41. In the middle of the main road of East City, there was a 3-story building that occupied a large area. On the main door hung a horizontal board with 3 golden words written on it. Wanxiang Tower. In an alley 100 feet away from the Wanxiang Tower. Qing Shan and I will go to Wanxiang Tower. You guys go to Old Wang's place and sell the animal skins. Then we will meet in this alley. Tung Yongfan ordered and glanced at Tung Qinghu. Qinghu, you have never been to Wanxiang Tower. Do you want to go in with us? Of course I do, Tung Qinghu said with his head held high. Then give the weapons to Old Wang for safekeeping. Tung Yongfan said, Qing Shan, give me your spear too. Weapons are not allowed in Wanxiang Tower. Such strict rules. Tung Qingshan also gave his Damascus steel spear to his clansmen. Then, Tung Yongfan, Tung Qingshan, and Tung Qinghu walked towards Wanxiang Tower. At the main entrance of Wanxiang Tower, there were 2 valiant ladies with sharp swords hanging on their waists. They greeted every guest with a smile. At the same time, they reminded the guests not to bring weapons into Wanxiang Tower. Tung Qingshan and the other 2 were dressed like hunters. They walked straight in, and the 2 ladies did not stop them. This place is really big. Tung Qinghu's eyes widened. Tung Qingshan was also surprised. The interior of Wanxiang Tower was very spacious. There were many counters, and there were more than 100 waiters standing behind the counters. Moreover, this was only the first floor. Qingshan, people from all walks of life, can enter Wanxiang Tower. Besides, there are a lot of things here, everything you need. Tung Yongfan said emotionally, the first and second floors are for selling things. As for the third floor, outsiders are not allowed to enter. However, the prices of the good items are ridiculously high. Tung Qingshan looked at the goods displayed on the counter and exclaimed in his heart, this Vientiane Tower is really generous. They put all the precious goods directly outside and aren't afraid of people robbing or stealing them. Tung Qingshan looked around and realized that in this Vientiane Tower, apart from the normal workers, there were also some people who were specifically patrolling. It's probably an inner force expert to prevent theft, Tung Qingshan thought to himself. Tung Qinghu's eyes widened as he stared at the bracelet next to him. Isn't this the blue marble bracelet? When we entered the mountain, we happened to find a large piece of blue flower stone, which we sold for 100 taels of silver. That blue flower stone is enough to make dozens of bracelets, but this bracelet actually costs 120 taels of silver. The employee standing behind the counter just glanced at Tung Qinghu disdainfully. One look, and you could tell that he was a poor villager. It was impossible for him to afford these exquisite bracelets with such clothes. All right, let's go inside and take a look. Tung Yongfan frowned and glared at Tung Qinghu. He then walked to the side and said in a low voice, Qinghu, don't make a fuss. It's embarrassing, do you understand? Tung Qinghu laughed and said no more. Father, what are you buying here? Tung Qingshan asked. I'm buying some materials for making weapons. This time, I've used up almost all the materials to make the Frost Jade Saber. It's time to buy some. There aren't any other places in East City except here. Tung Yongfan then walked inside and said, let's go to the counter that sells materials for making weapons. I'll let you guys broaden your horizons. Normally, when men from the village came to Vientiane Tower for the first time, they would be dumbfounded. However, to Tung Qingshan, this Vientiane Tower, which was much smaller than the large shopping malls in his previous life, didn't surprise him much. Tung Qingshan and the others came to the counter that sold materials for making weapons. So many messy things. Tung Qinghu muttered. Indeed, there were pieces of different metals, stones, and even powders on the counter. In short, the things here looked very inconspicuous. However, the prices were astonishing. Qingshan, look. Tung Yongfan pointed at a piece of silver metal with special markings on it. This is called star pattern steel. It should be said that it's the toughest steel that can be made today. It's the best material for making spear handles. Of course, the price is also very high. Seeing that Tung Yongfan knew his stuff, the shop assistant behind the counter praised, this spear shaft is made of star pattern steel. According to the legends, even an unparalleled Xiantian realm expert would find it hard to break it. Innate realm? Tung Qingshan was secretly shocked. Sure enough, as the Millennium Chronicles said, an era with abundant spiritual qi could give birth to innate experts. What? Tung Qinghu's eyes widened as he stared at the piece of paper under the small piece of star pattern steel. 1 gene of star pattern steel costs 1 gene of gold? Tung Qingshan also looked at the price and was secretly shocked. This star pattern steel was actually equivalent to gold. In this world, the purchasing power of gold was very shocking. 1 tael of star pattern steel was equivalent to 1 tael of gold, which was equivalent to 100 taels of silver. Star pattern steel is very heavy. To make a spear completely out of star pattern steel, it would need at least 100 gene of star pattern steel. The shop assistant chuckled. That's 100 gene of gold, which is 100,000 taels of silver. Unless one is extremely rich or a powerful warrior, it would be impossible to afford this amount of silver. Tung Qingshan gasped. My God, 100,000 taels of silver? Making a spear handle? Tung Jia village only had about 20,000 taels of silver left. Millennium cold steel? Tung Qingshan stared at a black stone beside the star pattern steel. A threatening cold air could be felt even before touching it. Yes, this millennium cold steel cannot be made. It is excavated from various places. However, the price is much lower than star pattern steel. 1 gene of millennium cold steel costs 2 taels of gold. Tung Yongfan said. The price of millennium cold steel was only 20% of the price of star pattern steel. Of course, this was still not something that Tung Qingshan could afford. These materials, Tung Qingshan was full of admiration. This was indeed an era with abundant spiritual qi of the heavens and earth. It was able to breed many magical materials. In his previous life, millennium cold steel was only described in books. This magical metal had long since disappeared from modern society. Qingshan, you guys go look at other places. After I buy the materials, I will call you guys. Tung Yongfan said. Yes, father. Tung Qingshan and his cousin, Qinghu, went to the other counters of Wanxiang Tower. Qingshan. Tung Qinghu suddenly pulled Tung Qingshan a few times. Tung Qingshan looked at him confusedly. What's wrong? At the same time, following Tung Qinghu's gaze, he looked towards the main entrance of the Vientiane Tower. He saw a handsome man wearing an aquamarine long gown and a cute girl wearing a white marten coat walking into the Vientiane Tower. Behind them, there were also guards and servants. It's that big salt merchant's daughter, Tung Qinghu said in a low voice. Is indeed her. Tung Qingshan also noticed, but his attention was more on the man. It is winter now, but that handsome young man is only wearing a long gown and doesn't feel cold at all. It seems that he is an inner strength expert. Qing Shan. Tang Qinghu secretly looked into the distance and said in a low voice, "This rich lady is really different from the mountain girls in our village. Look at her white skin. Her face is even more tender than the girls in the brothel." Tang Qinghu's words made Tang Qingshan not know whether to laugh or cry. If you want to look closer. It's nothing to peep from afar. You won't be able to see it when you go back to the village. Tang Qingshan laughed. The mountain girls had been working since they were young and were exposed to the wind and the sun. How could they compare with these rich ladies who had everything they needed? Let's go closer. Tang Qinghu was really brave and walked towards that direction. "Brother Liu, you are bragging to me about how powerful you are. Then let me ask you, is your name on the hidden dragon ranking?" When he got closer, Tang Qingshan heard the salt merchant's daughter asking the young man in the green gown, "Qingyu, those who can be on the hidden dragon ranking are the most outstanding people in the 9 prefectures. Which one of them didn't cultivate inner strength since they were young?" "I started cultivating late, but I don't care about the hidden dragon ranking. My ambition is to be on the earth ranking. Those who can be on the earth ranking are the true heroes." The salt merchant's daughter, Li Qingyu, covered her mouth and laughed. "You can't be on the hidden dragon ranking, but you still want to be on the earth ranking." The young man's face turned red. "Qingyu, don't make fun of me. This is just ambition. Also, the eldest martial brother of Qinghu Island is a hero who is on both the hidden dragon ranking and the earth ranking. What about your Gui Yuan sect? Your Gui Yuan sect doesn't have anyone on the hidden dragon ranking and the earth ranking. Your eldest martial brother is powerful, but not you." Qingyu humphed. "All right, Qingyu, don't be angry." The young man coaxed, "Didn't you want to buy the hidden dragon ranking and the young phoenix ranking? Waiter, give me 2 books each of the hidden dragon ranking and the young phoenix ranking." Tang Qingshan could clearly see that the shop assistant took out 4 thread-bound books. Each book was at least a finger thick, and on the top of the book, there were 3 big words written in bold calligraphy, "Hidden Dragon Ranking." Then, the servant behind the young man immediately paid for the books. It was 4 silver notes worth 100 taels. For 100 taels? Tang Qingshan was shocked. For books cost 400 taels? Why are they so expensive? Books should be very cheap. The handsome man and beautiful woman also walked towards the other counters, while Tang Qingshan went to the counter that sold books. The most eye-catching books were the Hidden Dragon Ranking, Young Phoenix Ranking, and Earth Ranking. The Hidden Dragon Ranking and Young Phoenix Ranking were very thick, while the Earth Ranking was very thin. The first 2 books were worth 100 taels of silver each, while the Earth Ranking was worth 10 taels of silver. "What are these 3 books?" Tang Qingshan asked. The shop assistant glanced at Tang Qingshan, who was still a teenager, and said with a smile, "Little fellow, these 3 books describe the famous heroes of the land of the 9 prefectures and their biographies. If you want to buy them, ask your parents for money." Most of the people who bought these books were people who practiced inner strength, or the children of rich families who admired warriors. Therefore, these books were very expensive. Tang Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. Although he knew that there were 8 super sects in the land of the 9 prefectures, there were many things that he was still ignorant about. "I will buy the earthly ranking," Tang Qingshan said as he took out an ingot of silver worth 10 taels from his bosom. As the leader of the clan's hunting squad, he would be given 10 taels of silver every month. Within the clan, the leader of the hunting squad, the master of the spear, and the number 1 blacksmith contributed the most of the clan and were given the most silver. Actually, the monthly salary of 10 taels of silver was still low compared to some of the guards in the city. However, since they were working for the clan, they could not ask for much. Qingshan, 10 taels of silver for a book. Tang Qinghu, who was at the side, had just shifted his attention from the salt merchant's daughter when he realized that Tang Qingshan had spent 10 taels of silver to buy a book. "To me, this book is worth this price." Tang Qingshan smiled as he took the book from the waiter. If your father knew, he would definitely scold you." Tang Qinghu curled his lips and said. Tang Qingshan, on the other hand, stood on the spot and flipped through the book. Chapter 42. On the first page of the earthly ranking, there are countless heroes in the land of the 9 prefectures. For example, in the northern prefectures of Yuzhou and Yinzhou, the land of bitter cold, the northeast King Hong Tian's 80,000 armored cavalry conquered more than half of the land of the 9 prefectures. In the northwest Yongzhou, the Qinling Mountains gave birth to a peerless figure like the heavenly emperor of Qinling, Yingzhong. Back then, the heavenly emperor of Qinling cut off the flow of the Yinjiang River, which was a 100-zhang-wide river. This was passed down by countless people, and he became the second great hero in history to unite the land of the 9 prefectures besides Emperor Yu. In the center of the land of the 9 prefectures, the Yuzhou gave birth to the greatest hero since the creation of the world, Emperor Yu. Emperor Yu split the mountain with 5 axes, divided the 9 prefectures, and built the 9 cauldrons. He became the first emperor in history and set up the capital in Yuzhou. Yuzhou is the land of kings and has many heroes. However, in the past thousands of years, many heroes have become white bones. Even hundreds of years later, they have been forgotten by the younger generations of the land of the 9 prefectures. Every time martial ancestor Jiang Jun of the Wanxiang sect thought of this, he would sigh. Then, the idea of compiling the heavenly ranking and the earthly ranking for the land of the 9 prefectures came into being. He used the power of the Wanxiang sect to travel the world and record the legends of heroes from all over the world. After the improvement of the later generations of the Wanxiang sect, the 4 rankings of the land of the 9 prefectures were created: heavenly ranking, earthly ranking, hidden dragon ranking, and young phoenix ranking. The 4 rankings of the land of the 9 prefectures are compiled once every 6 months. They record the heroes from all over the land of the 9 prefectures. The Wanxiang sect is determined to let all the heroes of the land of the 9 prefectures leave their names on the 4 rankings. Even thousands of years later, the younger generations will still know the legends of the older generations. When Tung Qingshan read this page, he couldn't help but feel his blood boil. To many heroes, wealth and riches might not be attractive, but to be famous for thousands of years was something they dreamed of. Tung Qingshan turned to the second page. Among the 4 rankings of the land of the 9 prefectures, the Hidden Dragon ranking records the 108 most outstanding heroes of the land of the 9 prefectures. As for the Young Phoenix ranking, it records the 108 most outstanding heroines in the land of the 9 prefectures who are under 30 years old. Tung Qingshan's eyes lit up when he saw this. In all of the 9 states, there were only 108 men and women, and each one of them was definitely a proud son of heaven. As for the heavenly ranking and earthly ranking, they are the core of the 9 provinces' 4 rankings. The cultivation realms are mainly divided into acquired realm and innate realm. As for the innate ranker, there was probably only 1 in 10 million people. Therefore, almost all the heroes from all over the world were post-liminary rankers. This Earth ranking records the 72 most powerful post-liminary realm experts. Tung Qingshan's eyes lit up as he thought to himself, the terrestrial ranking has no age limit. To be able to rank in the top 72 out of the billions of people in the land of the 9 prefectures, that is true strength. It is much more valuable than the Hidden Dragon ranking and the Young Phoenix ranking. No one on the Earth board can be underestimated. Tung Qingshan continued to watch. The heavenly ranking records 36 super experts who have reached the Xiantian realm. Because the number of innate rankers is very small, the heavenly ranking changes very little every 10 or 20 years. On the contrary, the earthly ranking is the most competitive. In the world, there are thousands of inner strength experts who have reached the peak of the post-liminary realm, but only 72 are listed in the earthly ranking. Compared to the earthly ranking half a year ago, 11 of the 72 people on the earthly ranking have been removed and replaced by 11 other heroes. Tung Qingshan roughly read the description of the 4 lists. Obviously, The so-called Hidden Dragon ranking and Young Phoenix ranking were used to record the young talents and the favored ones. Although many people attached great importance to them, in comparison, people in the world paid more attention to the heaven and earth ranking. However, there were too few innate rankers, and the heaven ranking had not changed much. Therefore, the earth ranking had become the most competitive ranking. Many heroes risked their lives just to leave their names on the earthly ranking. Some people are tempted by money, some are obsessed with beauties, but most heroes value fame the most. Tung Qingshan sighed in his heart. He was about to flip through the book to see which 72 heroes were listed in the earthly ranking in the land of the 9 prefectures. Qingshan, a voice suddenly sounded. Father. Tung Qingshan woke up with a start. What are you looking at? You look so fascinated. Tung Yongfan laughed. Tung Qinghu, who was at the side, laughed and said, Qingshan spent 10 taels of silver to buy this earthly ranking book. You are really willing to spend money. Tung Yongfan did not blame Tung Qingshan. We have bought everything. Let's go. Let's go to the alley and wait for the other clansmen. Immediately, Tung Yongfan, Tung Qingshan, and Tung Qinghu left Wanxiang Tower and arrived at the alley beside Wanxiang Tower. There were obviously fewer people in the alley. The other clansmen had not arrived yet. Tung Qingshan leaned against the wall and continued to read the earthly ranking. The earth ranking described the 72 heroes and also described some of the famous deeds of these heroes. As long as one is able to cultivate inner strength, he can reach the peak of the post-liminary realm in 10 years. But the inner strength is the same, but the difference in strength is like heaven and earth. Looking at this book, Tung Qingshan sighed. According to the description of the earthly ranking, there are too many people who reach the peak of the post-liminary realm. But because of the different cultivation manuals or the difference in personal comprehension, the difference in strength was too big. For example, Tung Qingshan. The strength of Tung Qingshan, who had cultivated the crossing worlds, and the strength of those who had not cultivated the crossing worlds were two completely different levels. At this time, the inner strength cultivation manuals played a big role. There was also personal comprehension. Tung Qingshan had comprehended the 2 great spear arts, pursuing shadow and transmutation unity law. Even if he only had the strength of 1,000 jin, he could easily kill over 100 wild wolves with a single spear. As for Tung Qinghu, who also had the strength of 1,000 jin, he still needed Tung Yonglei and Tung Qingshan to help him when facing the attack of the wolf pack. The amount of inner strength was only a foundation. The method of application and personal comprehension were also very important. This was also the reason why all kinds of secret manuals would lead to massacres. Tung Qingshan's eyes suddenly lit up as he looked at the story of the person ranked 58 on the earthly ranking. When Yang Fan was 48 years old, he chased after the infamous 4 Hong brothers for 3 days and 3 nights. After chasing them for over 1,000 miles, 3 of the 4 Hong brothers died, leaving only Hong Si. Hong Si fled back to his hometown, East City, and established the White Horse Gang. However, for 20 years, Hong Si did not dare to seek revenge on Yang Fan. When Yang Fan was 52 years old, this was the story of Yang Fan, and it only slightly mentioned the person Hong Si. However, Tung Qingshan was surprised. The White Horse Gang's master Hong Si actually has such a history. Tung Qingshan was surprised. The White Horse Gang could be said to be the local tyrant of East City. The White Horse Gang's great master, Master Hong Si, was absolutely a person of authority in East City. Who would have thought that this great person would also have such a difficult time? Father, look. Tung Qingshan smiled and handed the book to his father. Look at this paragraph. Tung Yongfan took the book with a puzzled look and read a paragraph. He said in surprise, Master Hong Si actually has 3 older brothers. No wonder he is called Hong Si. However, who is this Yongfan? He is actually so powerful. While speaking, Tung Yongfan also flipped through the book from the beginning. Tung Qingshan smiled bitterly. He did not expect his father to also be fascinated, but he had already read more than half of the book. This Master Hong's strength should also be extremely powerful. Tung Qingshan deduced based on that incident. To be able to be listed on the earthly ranking, it can be said that those who are at the peak of the post-liminary realm can be ranked in the entire 9 prefectures. That Yang Fan chased after the 4 Hong brothers for 3 days and 3 nights. But Master Hong's still managed to escape. Master Hong's strength cannot be underestimated. Moreover, the 4 Hong brothers were known as extremely vicious. Without a certain level of skill, it is impossible for them to receive such an evaluation. Merely being mentioned a few words in the earthly ranking meant that one's strength was extraordinary. After all, if the 4 Hong brothers were not powerful, this incident would not have been recorded. While Tung Qingshan and the other 2 were waiting for the other clansmen on the street, about 10 zhang away from Tung Qingshan and the others. Did you see that? It's those 3 hunters. A man in black pointed in the direction of Tung Qingshan and the others and said in a low voice, "I saw it. Brother Lang, you said that they have 10,000 taels of silver?" A lean man with triangular eyes said in surprise. The man in black sneered, "Why would I lie to you? If it wasn't for the fact that you are from the same village as me, why would I tell you this news?" This time, our Lord ordered weapons from them and just gave them 10,000 taels of silver. 10,000 taels. The eyes of the triangular-eyed man lit up, and then he laughed. "Brother Lang, don't worry. After our men kill them and rob the silver, you will definitely be rewarded. However, I don't understand. Your Lord gave them the silver, so why did he leak the news to us and let us rob them?" The man in black sneered, "You don't understand. Our Lord is a person who will seek revenge for the smallest grievance." This time, he did not intend to give the mountain people money. Who would have thought that the mountain people would make a fuss, and even the Lord would come out? Our Lord had no choice but to give them money. However, with our Lord's personality, how could he swallow this anger? He doesn't dare to be angry with the Lord, his eldest martial brother, and he doesn't dare to cause trouble for these mountain people. The triangular-eyed man laughed. "Your Lord is really ruthless and vicious. However, we like it. Ha! Humph. Following this Lord, we, the little ones, can also get a lot of benefits. If the Lord didn't come out, I would have gotten at least 100 taels of silver." The man in black said, "Don't worry, Brother Lang. If we really get 10,000 taels of silver, I, your brother, will give you more than 100 taels of silver." The triangular-eyed man said. The man in black laughed. "Hey, look, the other hunters are here. It seems that they are about to leave. You should quickly go and prepare." The man in black said, "Don't worry. We are very familiar with the area of E-City. They won't be able to escape." The triangular-eyed man cupped his hands and said, "Brother Lang, I will be busy now. I will look for you at night. Go." The man in black said. At this time, the people of Tongjia village gathered together. "Everyone is here. Let's go back." Tung Qingshan smiled as he passed the book to Tung Yongfan. "This book is really good. When we go back, I must lend it to my father to read." With this, the group of hunters of Tongjia village joked with each other and embarked on their return journey. Chapter 43. The sun hung high in the sky. The cold winter sun wasn't scorching, but on the contrary, it felt very comfortable. The group of hunters from Tongjia village laughed heartily as they hurried on their way. "Yongjiang, how much did you sell the animal skins for?" Tung Yongfan asked. "Olwang did a lot of business with us and gave us a good price. The animal skins were sold for more than 350 taels of silver." A tall and honest-looking middle-aged man said with a smile. "However, it can't compare to the ferret that Qing Shan caught. I asked Wanxiang Tower today, and they were willing to pay 4,000 taels of silver for an intact ferret fur." Tung Qinghu praised. "Ferret fur is priceless. The chief is not in a hurry to sell it. However, Qing Shan made a great contribution, so the chief should reward him." Tung Yongfan smiled and glanced at his son. As a father, he was proud of his son's strength. Tung Yongfan laughed and said, "It's fine as long as it's enough. Isn't everyone working so hard for the clan? However, the ferret fur is really expensive." This time, My master and I worked so hard to forge so many frost jade sabers, but the money we earned couldn't even compare to the price of ferret. The surrounding clansmen couldn't help but laugh. All right, Yongjiang, where are the steam buns and flatbread we brought this morning? Take them out and let us eat some. It will take us another 4 hours to go back. Tung Yong Fan reminded. Come, 2 steam buns and 2 flatbread each. He opened a cloth bag and began to distribute the buns and flatbread to everyone. Tung Qingshan also took the buns and flatbread. He took a big bite and fiercely chewed. He then took out a bamboo tube filled with water and drank some. These steamed buns taste really good. Tung Qingshan thought to himself, eating the buns and flatbread, drinking cold water, and joking with a group of rough men. Tung Qingshan inexplicably felt a sense of warmth. I like this kind of life. Looking at the blazing sun, Tung Qingshan thought to himself, this was a group of sincere and simple men. Does everyone know why Master Hong Si of the White Horse Gang is called Hong Si? Tung Yong Fan asked while eating happily. It's just a name. What else could it be? The group of clansmen didn't know. Tung Yong Fan laughed heartily and began to talk to his clansmen about how the expert Yong Fan had chased after the 4 Hong brothers. When Tung Qingshan's group was hurrying along, they were about 5 or 6 miles away from them. There was a mound on the side of the road. The mound was full of withered weeds. Behind the mound, there was a group of bandits hiding. Buttface, why are you in such a hurry? Why did you ask me to lead my men and set up an ambush here? Could it be that your brother Lang sent me a false message to fool me? A burly man with dark skin, eyes as big as an ox's, and a stocky build, wearing a large black cotton robe, wielding a thick machete, revealing his black hairy chest. This man was the leader of the bandits. The triangular-eyed man said in a low voice, "Don't worry, boss. There's no mistake. That brother of mine is working for a big salt merchant. Why would he lie to me? If I wasn't 100% sure, would I have ridden here and asked you to come out? I don't think you would dare." The fierce bandit leader sneered. "Go ahead and keep an eye on them. When they arrive, immediately warn us." Okay. The lean, triangular-eyed man's body was nimble. He ran more than 10 feet away and stared at the road. "Brother, are we enough?" Beside the fierce bandit leader was a handsome young man. "Don't worry, third brother. According to what Buttface said, there are a total of 31 people. One of them is just a kid. In fact, it can only be counted as 30 people. Our 103 brothers, damn it. Let's give them a few waves of arrows first. I estimate that more than half of them will fall. As for the remaining 11 or 12, won't it be easy to kill them all? If it weren't for the 10,000 taels of silver, I wouldn't even bother to bring so many brothers." The fierce bandit leader stabbed the machete on his back into the ground and sneered. "Brother, be careful. After all, they are hunters." The handsome young man reminded. "What are you afraid of? Your brother, me, alone, with one machete, can chop them until they cry for their parents." The fierce bandit leader fiercely spat and cursed. After a long time, "Boss." Not far away, the triangular-eyed man bent his body and scurried over. His face was full of joy. "The fat antelope is here. It's about 100 zhang away. That group of people are wearing animal skins. I recognize them from afar." The fierce bandit leader's eyes lit up. The surrounding bandits were all very excited, but none of them made a sound. These bandits were all experienced bandits. They were very clear that at this time, they absolutely could not expose their whereabouts. "Brothers." The fierce bandit leader lowered his voice, his face ferocious. "In a moment, when that group of hunters comes near, wait for my order. Brothers, we will mercilessly shoot them. It is best to kill most of them at the beginning. After we rob them, we will go to the Spring Fragrance Courtyard to have fun." The bandits all laughed, but there was a ferocious glint in their eyes, as if they were ferocious beasts ready to attack. Tung Qingshan and his group didn't know that there was an ambush in front of them. Those bandits had already begun to take out their arrows and were ready to attack. The bandits' movements were very quiet. Normally, ordinary people wouldn't be able to hear them. Tung Qingshan's ears twitched as he glanced at the mound in the distance. As an expert of the internal martial arts who had been training since childhood, Tung Chingshan's sixth senses were extremely sensitive. He would be able to detect ordinary people before they even got close. When they were in East City, the triangular-eyed man had seen Tung Chingshan and his group from afar. However, since there were too many people in East City, Tung Chingshan didn't notice him at all. But this was the wilderness. The surroundings were silent. Hundreds of people hiding behind the mound in the distance began to prepare to attack. No matter how well they hid, Tung Chingshan still noticed them. "Father." Tung Chingshan suddenly opened his mouth. "What's wrong?" Tung Yongfan asked doubtfully. "Everyone stop." Tung Chingshan frowned. The group of clansmen immediately looked at him. Tung Chingshan lowered his voice and said, "Everyone, do you see that? That mound in front, I have a feeling that there should be someone hiding behind that mound. Moreover, there are many of them." The group of clansmen couldn't help but change their expressions. Tung Chingshan glanced at the mound, and his brain started to think quickly. In his previous life, those professional agents couldn't even think of getting close to Tung Chingshan without being discovered by Tung Chingshan. Although these bandits were experienced bandits, they weren't as professionally trained as the agents and killers of his previous life. In terms of hiding, they were still far from being good at it. In addition, there were hundreds of people together. It was impossible for them to not make some noise. "Brother Fan, what should we do?" Many of the surrounding clansmen looked at Tung Yongfan. Tung Yongfan stared at the mound and said in a low voice, "There's no other way. We have to go back. So let's do it this way. We'll take a detour. We'll go far away from that mound. If their target is us, they won't be able to resist rushing out. Keeping a distance from them will also prevent them from launching a sneak attack." "Okay, let's do it this way." The clansmen had no other way. They could only do this. Tung Chingshan and his group walked down the road and entered the field. They maintained a distance of at least 30 to 40 zhang from mound. At this distance, even if the arrows could hit, the power would be very weak. Madhurf ****. That ruthless bandit leader saw this scene, and his expression changed. "This group of hunters actually found us. Boss, what should we do?" That triangular-eyed man asked anxiously. "What else can we do?" The ruthless bandit leader's expression was ferocious. A trace of madness flashed in his eyes. "I have over 100 people. Why should I be afraid of them? Brothers, listen up. Later, charge with me. If the archers come near, shoot them mercilessly and kill them all." Those bandits were all filled with killing intent. Which one of them didn't have a few lives on their hands? Tung Chingshan intentionally walked on the leftmost side because the mound was on the left. "Those bandits shouldn't be here to rob us, right?" Tung Chinghu said in a low voice. "Don't talk nonsense. It doesn't matter if they are here to deal with us or not. Everyone get ready." Tung Yongfan's expression was solemn. All of the clansmen were highly focused, either holding long spears or longbows. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In this world, if you wanted to live well, you had to be ruthless. Everyone held their breath. "Kill!" A ruthless roar sounded from behind the mound. A sturdy, dark, and stocky man holding a thick machete took the lead and rushed over. Behind him was a large group of people. This group of people were like a pack of wolves, rushing down from the mound. "Attack!" Tung Yongfan roared. "Xiao! Xiao! Xiao!" The people of Tongjia village were the first to shoot arrows. However, they were far away from each other, and there were too few people on Tongjia village's side. There were only 12 people with bows and arrows. The first wave of arrows only injured the arm of one bandit. "Brother Fan, there are too many of them. What should we do?" Many clansmen asked anxiously. "Brother Fan, take the money and rush back first. We will hold them off here." Some clansmen went crazy in the face of death. The ruthless bandit leader holding the machete saw the hunters begin to panic and couldn't help but laugh proudly. Shooting from so far away? A group of idiots. But their arm strength isn't small. They can shoot from so far away. At this moment, the ruthless bandit leader was surprised to find a young hunter holding a Damascus steel spear rushing over at an extremely fast speed. His speed was extremely fast, courting death. The ruthless bandit leader sneered. "Archers shoot. They were now within shooting range. Among the 100 bandits, there were more than 40 people with bows and arrows. Because Tung Shan was the first to rush towards them, naturally, many arrows were shot towards Tung Shan. Little guy, you have courage, but you are very stupid. The ruthless bandit leader sneered. Whoosh whoosh. Tung Shan, who was rushing in extremely fast speed, suddenly began to dance the Damascus steel spear in his hand. It was like a rotating flywheel, and all the arrows that approached him were all swept away. After a wave of arrows, Tung Shan's body didn't have a single wound. His gaze was firmly locked on the ruthless bandit leader. The ruthless bandit leader was startled. So many arrows, but they actually couldn't injure a single person? At this moment, the bandits were madly rushing towards the Tung Jia village hunters. Many more criminals took out their arrows again. Little guy die. Some of the bandits rushed towards Tung Shan in a disorderly manner, their faces full of malevolence. The other bandits rushed towards the other members of the Tung Jia village. Obviously, in their eyes, the 30 adults were the biggest threat. Facing the bandits' machetes, Tung Shan's speed didn't decrease in the slightest. Pooh, pooh, pooh. The Damascus steel spear in his hand was like a venomous snake coming out of its hole. It continuously flashed 3 times, leaving behind a blurry mirage. The 3 bandits near Tung Shan widened their eyes and covered their throats, emitting sounds. They desperately wanted to breathe, but the big holes in their throats were bleeding profusely. The 3 bandits collapsed with a loud bang. Pooh, 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 pooh. The shadow of the spear flashed, and the red tassel danced in the air. A few drops of blood floated in the air. In the blink of an eye, Tung Shan had rushed over a distance of 5 zhang, and 13 bandits had fallen. All of them had their throats pierced, without exception. What? The ruthless bandit leader's expression changed greatly. He had misjudged. This youngster was the most terrifying among the group of hunters. Chapter 44. The bandit archers ran at the back. When they saw that Tung Shan was like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain, killing 16 people in a row with irresistible force and rushing towards their leader, they couldn't help but jump in fright. Shoot him to death. The handsome young man anxiously shouted. Xiao! 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 The arrows were like locusts shooting towards Tung Shan. Tung Shan attracted the enemy's attention, greatly reducing the pressure on the other clansmen. Seeing this, Tung Qinghu and the others became anxious. Tung Qinghu roared. They're surrounding Shan. Everyone, let's kill them together. Kill! The eyes of the men of the Tang clan also turned red. The training they had since they were young was effective. Each of them formed a formation with ease, and their spears were like a forest piercing towards the attacking bandits. Tung Shan simply ignored the arrows shooting towards him. The Damascus steel spear in his hand spun, and with a strange force, all the arrows that approached Tung Shan were all swept to the side. Spear art, transmutation unity law. The ruthless bandit leader grinned. Boy, you're courting death. Instead of running away, he roared angrily. The machete in his hand drew an arc, and with a sharp whistling sound, fiercely chopped towards Tung Shan's head. The Damascus steel spear in Tung Shan's hand seemed to have a life of its own. The spearhead touched the surface of the machete. What a strong force. The ruthless bandit leader's complexion suddenly changed. My machete. He only felt that when the machete in his hand touched the tip of the opponent's spear, it fell into a whirlpool and involuntarily tilted to the side. Tung Shan also felt that when he touched the machete, the movement of his spear slightly changed. The spear in Tung Shan's hand turned, and without slowing down, it directly pierced towards the ruthless bandit leader's throat. The speed was as fast as lightning. Whoosh! Seeing the spear coming at him, the bandit leader panicked. How is this possible? The bandit leader was very confident in his strength. Even if the other party's spear could block his saber, the spear should have been knocked to the side. How could the spear turn around and stab straight at him without slowing down. He would never be able to understand the profound mysteries contained within the Damascus steel spear. Actually, the true profundity of the pursuing shadow spear technique was this first revolution. To be precise, this first turn was a spiral force. The pursuing shadow spear art was originally derived from the bursting fist of the five-element fists. As a Xing Yi Grandmaster, Tang Qingshan still spent several years to successfully evolve the bursting fist into the pursuing shadow spear art. The bursting fist was like an arrow. The first characteristic of the pursuing shadow spear art was its speed. As fast as an arrow, as fast as a phantom. The second characteristic was that the spear itself contained a spiral force. Even if the enemy's saber, sword, or spear came at him, the spear in Tang Qingshan's hand could still easily block it. Moreover, by using the spiral force, he could rotate the strength of the enemy's weapon to the side, while his own weapon was almost unaffected and directly pierced the enemy's vital points, killing the enemy. Killing the enemy only required one move. This move seemed simple, but it tested many aspects. For example, the listening skill required one to be able to perfectly perceive the enemy's strength and use it to rotate the enemy's strength to the side, while one's own weapon took the opportunity to kill the enemy. Just this move required one to reach the realm of one with the spear. The second was that one had to reach an extremely high realm in the aspect of spiral force. Only then could one dispel the enemy's weapon to the side. One had to be a bursting fist grandmaster who had reached the realm of one with the spear to be able to use this move perfectly. In a real battle, killing someone only required one move. Although this move seemed simple, in reality, it required many years of research and practice. Facing certain death, the bandit leader roared and unexpectedly grabbed the spearhead of Tang Qingshan with his left hand. The Damascus steel spear pierced through the bandit leader's palm. Under the influence of the palm, the spearhead pierced through the bandit leader's muscles, tendons, and bones. Blood gushed out. Humph! Tang Qingshan exerted force on the spearhead and pressed the bandit leader to the ground. The wound on his shoulder became bigger. He pulled out the spear and pointed the spearhead at the bandit leader's eyes. "Stop!" Tang Qingshan roared. In the open field, the bandits who were fighting to the death were shocked to see their boss's life fall into the hands of a teenager. Involuntarily, the bandits retreated and stopped. The bandit leader's wound on his shoulder twitched in pain. Suddenly, the bandit leader's eyes flashed with a trace of cruelty and madness. While lying on the ground, he suddenly waved the machete in his right hand. "Ooh!" The thick machete chopped toward Tang Qingshan's thigh. "You're courting death!" Tang Qingshan roared. His right leg kicked the bandit leader's right wrist as fast as lightning. "Pa!" The sound of bones breaking rang out. The machete flew up and fell on the ground in the distance. The bandit leader's right hand drooped, and the bones inside had been completely crushed into powder. "If you move again, I will skin you alive." Tang Qingshan's eyes were like lightning as he stared at the bandit leader. The bandit leader's heart was ruthless, but at this time, he was frightened by Tang Qingshan's eyes. He clearly felt that, if he moved, this teenager would definitely pierce through his head. In a trance, the bandit leader seemed to feel that the teenager holding the spear was Master Hong Si of the White Horse Gang. Master Hong Si, along with his three brothers, roamed the world when they were young. They also earned the notoriety of the Four Brothers of the Hong clan and took countless lives. Ordinary bandits would be frightened by Master Hong Si's eyes. At this moment, Tang Qingshan's aura and eyes also caused the bandit leader to feel fear. "Father, are you all right?" Tang Qingshan hastily asked. Tang Qingshan's group also ran over and supported the injured clansman. Tang Yongfan shouted from afar, "The others are all right, but..." Tang Qingshan's eyes swept over and saw that one clansman's right leg was broken and was already tied up with a cloth. Another clansman's face was slashed with a knife, and one of his eyes was blind. The wound opened up, making him look very hideous. Almost all of the clansmen were stained with blood. Fortunately, everyone helped each other and formed a spear formation, so no one died. If Tung Qingshan hadn't caught the bandit leader, it would have been normal for some of the clansmen to die. Qingshan, we also killed a few of them, Tung Qinghu said. Tung Qingshan secretly let out a sigh of relief. In fact, the fight just now was very short. Fortunately, he restrained the bandit leader at the beginning and didn't let the situation escalate. Tung Qingshan looked down at the bandit leader on the ground and shouted, "Speak! Why did you attack us? If you lie, I will give you a taste." "We are bandits, of course we rob." The bandit leader raised his head and roared. "Poochie!" The long spear moved like an illusion, and the bandit leader howled in pain. Tung Qingshan's long spear had already pierced through his right shoulder, causing blood to flow out. When the long spear was pulled out, blood spurted out. "Mother *Ker, you think we are fools?" The nearby Tung Qinghu roared. "I have entered the city so many times, but I have never met a bandit who came to rob us hunters. Mother *Ker, if you don't tell us, my brother won't kill you, but I will stab you to death." Tung Qinghu held his long spear and rushed over. The Tung clansmen were very clear that the hunters were relatively poor and intrepid, so the bandits usually wouldn't attack them. The Tung clansmen had deliberately circled to the fields, but the bandits still attacked them. Obviously, the bandits were hiding there for them. In the end, what made these bandits come to rob and kill a group of hunters? The Tung clansmen naturally thought of the 10,000 taels of silver. Only 10,000 taels of silver was worth it for these bandits to attack. "Let go of our boss." The bandits were also anxious. "Shut up." Tung Qingshan swept his gaze over. Previously, when Tung Qingshan killed them, it was as if he was cutting grass, completely intimidating these bandits. Even their boss couldn't last one round against Tung Qingshan. How could they dare to fight against Tung Qingshan? They were only anxious, but they didn't dare to make sound. Many people fiercely glared at the triangular-eyed man. The triangular-eyed man was also somewhat terrified. He never would have thought that among the 31 hunters, the youth he looked down on the most was the most terrifying demon. "I will speak." The bandit leader finally gave in. He turned his head and stared at the triangular-eyed man in the distance. "It's him, Butt-Face. Mother *Ker, that bastard brother of his is working for some big salt merchant. Tell me, you have 10,000 taels of silver. Both of my hands are crippled because of this Butt-Face." The bandit leader obviously hated the triangular-eyed man. Both his hands were crippled, and both his shoulders were pierced. His life was over. As expected, Tung Qingshan wasn't surprised at all. Other than their own clansmen, only the salt merchants knew that they had 10,000 taels of silver. "That guy's called Qin San." Tung Qingshan still clearly remembered the scene at the Yangzhou Chamber of Commerce. He remembered the name of the leader of the cavalry. It should be him. "Butt-Face, who is it?" Tung Qingshan's gaze swept over the other bandits. The triangular-eyed man was so scared that his face changed. He turned around and was about to escape. However, one of the bandits beside him kicked him in the butt, causing him to fall flat on his face. "Still want to escape?" The handsome youth among the bandits grabbed the triangular-eyed man and directly dragged him to the side of Tung Qingshan and threw him beside Tung Qingshan. The handsome youth cupped his hands and said to Tung Qingshan, "Brother, we also believe Butt-Face words. There was a fat sheep, that's why we sent out our brothers. Since we have met you, we brothers of Tiger Hill admit defeat. Please let my brother go. Everything can be discussed." Chapter 45. Tung Qingshan glanced at the surrounding bandits and said, "There are about 80 bandits left. Once I make a move, I'm afraid these bandits will scatter and flee. If they scatter and flee, no matter how powerful I am, I can at most kill 10 to 20 people. It won't help the situation. As for Uncle Yin and the others." Tung Qingshan looked at the clansmen. These clansmen had all entered the mountain with him to hunt wild beasts. Today, some were crippled and some were blind. Tung Qingshan's heart was burning with anger. "Everything can be discussed?" Tung Yongfan took 2 steps forward and walked in front of Tung Qingshan. He looked at the group of bandits and said, "If you want to save your boss, it's easy. Take out all the valuable things you have and see if it's enough to make up for the loss of our clansmen. If it's enough, maybe we'll let your boss go. Otherwise," Tung Qingshan glanced at his father and didn't say anything to oppose. The other clansmen also tacitly agreed. In this era, death was normal. If they were always hot-headed, Tung Jia village would have been destroyed a long time ago. Sometimes, one must think rationally. Killing more bandits would not benefit Tung Jia village at all. On the contrary, it might provoke the bandits and cause the death of more clansmen. Okay, no problem. The handsome young man took out 3 ingots of silver from his bosom. At the same time, he turned to look at the others and shouted, "Hurry up!" The bandits hesitated for a moment before taking out silver and copper coins from their bosoms. "Throw them all together and put them on the ground," Tung Yongfan shouted. Although the bandits were reluctant, they still threw the silver and copper coins on the field. After a while, they piled up into a small pile. "Qinghu, go and count how much there is," Tung Yongfan ordered. "Okay." Tung Qinghu ran over and counted carefully. He turned his head and said, "Not counting the small change, it's a total of 323 taels of silver. That's all." Tung Yongfan sneered and looked at the handsome young man. "The head of your Tiger Hill boss isn't worth so little silver." The handsome young man became anxious when he heard this. Amongst this group of people, he was the one who was most worried about their big brother's life, because that was his own brother. The elegant youth turned his head and angrily glared at a skinny bandit. "Where is the banknote my brother left with you?" The bandit was startled and hastily said, That was given to the White Horse Gang." At this time, who cares about the White Horse Gang? My brother is about to die." The elegant youth shouted. Evidently, the handsome young man had a lot of prestige. The bandit took out a stack of banknotes from his bosom and reluctantly threw them on the ground. Tung Yonghu took a look, turned around and said, 16 banknotes worth 100 taels each. Although it's not enough, it's still okay. All right, you can leave now. But he has to stay." Tung Yongfan pointed at the triangular-eyed man. The triangular-eyed man was so frightened that he immediately knelt down and turned his head to look at the other bandits in fear. "Brothers, he's not from our Tiger Hill either. He's just a hooligan. If you want to kill or plunder, you guys can deal with it. Please release my brother," the elegant youth said. "Get lost." Tung Qingshan kicked the ruthless bandit leader's waist. The ruthless bandit leader's entire body flew up and heavily fell in front of the elegant youth. "Let's go." The ruthless bandit leader lowered his voice and hastily said, "Go." The elegant youth helped the ruthless bandit leader up and immediately ordered the group of bandits to quickly run into the distance. "Brothers," the triangular-eyed man was about to cry. He then turned his head and saw a group of Tang clansmen angrily glaring at him. He was so scared that his entire body trembled. Tung Yongfan stared at the triangular-eyed man and said, "Speak. Tell me everything clearly from beginning to end." The triangular-eyed man's body trembled and hastily said, "Brothers, this has nothing to do with me. I'm just a messenger. That brother of mine works under the great salt merchant of Yangzhou, Master Li. This time, it was his leader who ordered him to find people to deal with you. That leader seems to have placed an order with you and paid you 10,000 taels of silver. My brother also said that leader didn't intend to pay you 10,000 taels of silver at first. Son of A.B. *TCH, it's that bastard." Tung Qinghu roared. Tung Qingshan's heart was filled with killing intent. "It's that cavalry leader, Qin San." Although he really wanted to kill Qin San was still a subordinate of the great salt merchant. Moreover, in terms of strength, Tung Qingshan was afraid that the current him might not be the enemy's match. Right now, he could only endure. "Brothers, just treat it as a fart and let me go," the triangular-eyed man hastily said. The long spear in Tung Yongfan's hand moved. Puchi! The long spear pierced through the triangular-eyed man's throat. The triangular-eyed man's eyes widened, and then his vitality dissipated. His whole body powerlessly fell on the field. "Let's go." Tung Yong Fan pulled out his long spear and said. The Tung clansman supported the injured and quickly left. On the way back, "Qing Shan," Tung Yong Fan said. "Father." Tung Qing Shan looked at his father. "Do you think it's bad that I accepted the silver today and let those bandits go?" Tung Yong Fan sighed. "Your spear art is very good. If I let you go and let you kill, you would only be able to kill a portion of the people, while the others would kill many of our clansmen. At that time, more of our clansmen would die. Putting our clansmen in danger because of a moment of anger is absolutely not okay." Tung Yong Fan said. "Father, I understand." If Tung Qing Shan was really a 10-year-old child, he might have really let his emotions affect his decisions. However, he had the memories of his previous life. He knew when to endure and when to explode. "Qing Shan, you have a say in the clan now, and you can also make decisions. However, you must remember, in this chaotic world, the Tung clan must continue to exist. You must not let your emotions affect your decisions." Tung Yong Fan said. "You must always remember that there are more clansmen behind you." "I know, father." Tung Qingshan's heart was in a mess. It wasn't because of his father's words. It was because of Xing E martial arts. It's about time to teach the clansmen Xing E martial arts. Tung Qingshan thought to himself, when I was 3 or 4 years old, words were useless in the clan. Moreover, a child teaching everyone Xing E martial arts is too ridiculous. But now, I am a number 1 in the clan, and everyone knows that my spear art is powerful. I only need to tell a lie, and the clansmen will easily believe me. On the way back, Tung Qingshan thought carefully and finally made up his mind. "Yes, when I go back, I will talk to grandfather and father." Asterisk, 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 asterisk. When they returned to the clan, most of Tung Qingshan's group were injured. This shocked the clansmen of Tung Jia village. Fortunately, no one died, and it was still within the acceptable range. In the residence of Chief Tung Yunlong, several elders of the clan, Tung Yongxiang, Tung Yonglei, and the one-armed Tung Yongxiang were all gathered here. "Yongfan, you did a good job this time." Tung Yunlong sighed. "I didn't expect the cavalry leader to be so narrow-minded. After giving us 10,000 taels of silver, he actually sent people to inform the bandits. To that cavalry leader, we are just ants. If he wants to crush us, he can crush us." Tung Yonglei sneered. "More than 100 years ago, didn't the number 1 gang in East City, the Bronze Tiger Gang, exterminate the Tung clan to establish their power? Fortunately, we ran fast and escaped into the mountains. However, almost half of our clansmen were slaughtered." Third grandfather sighed. "In this world, human life is the most worthless. Fortunately, everyone came back alive." Tung Yunlong looked at Tung Yongfan and Qing Shan. "Yongfan, Qing Shan, you and your son must be tired today. Go back and rest early." "Yes, master." Tung Yongfan nodded. "Grandfather," Tung Qing Shan suddenly said. "Yes?" Many people looked at Tung Qing Shan. The elders of the clan liked Tung Qing Shan very much. He was so young, but he had such amazing martial strength. If a clan had such an expert, the clan would benefit. For example, if it wasn't for Tung Qing Shan today, not many members of the hunting squad would have survived. But with Tung Qing Shan, not only did they not die, but they also forced the bandits to take out their silver. Tung Qing Shan looked at the elders of the clan and said, "Grandfather, I have something to tell everyone." "Say it," Tung Yunlong said with a smile. "What is it, Qing Shan?" Third grandfather also asked. Tung Qing Shan said, "Not long after I joined the hunting squad, I hunted a tiger. When I was hunting the tiger, I carefully observed the tiger's movements. After I returned, I carefully pondered over it. I remembered that Li Jinfu from the Li Jia village was able to figure out a set of ferocious tiger fist. I also figured out a set of tiger fist." "Tiger fist?" The clansmen laughed. In the land of the 9 prefectures, there were countless kinds of fist techniques. Because of the chaotic times, who didn't know 1 or 2? Qing Shan is really amazing. Tung Yunlong praised and didn't say anything else. But when I practiced this tiger fist and control my breathing a few days ago, I discovered that my body produced a magical power. Tung Qingshan said, magical power produced in your body. The group of people in the room was stunned. What power? Tung Yunlong asked. Tung Qingshan squatted down and said, Grandfather, look. Tung Qingshan's hands and body remained motionless on the wooden stool, and at the same time, he activated his inner strength. Ooh. The inner strength shot out like an arrow, and the wooden stool exploded. The wood on the edge of the wooden stool completely turned into powder. The group of people in the room was completely stunned. They couldn't say a word as they looked at this scene in a daze. Inner strength. The one-armed Tung Yonglei was the first to shout. It's inner strength. Tung Yongxiang also said excitedly, it's inner strength. It's really inner strength. I've seen it before. It's really inner strength. Tung Yunlong was also extremely excited. The group of clansmen were like a pack of hungry wolves staring at a lamb. All of them were so excited that their faces were flushed as they stared at Tung Qingshan. Qingshan actually cultivated inner strength. How is this possible? Tung Yongxiang exclaimed. Tung Qingshan also shook his head and pretended to be confused. I'm not sure either. I just imitated the tiger's movements. I felt that those movements could train my body and, at the same time, adjust my breathing. I didn't expect that after practicing for a few months, my body would actually produce inner strength. I can't believe it. Huh? Tung Yunlong laughed. What's so strange about this? There are countless ways to cultivate inner strength in this world. Aren't these ways created by people? If others can create it, then why can't the most powerful genius of our Tung clan in 1,000 years? The clansman nodded. If others can create it, then it's only natural for our Tung clan to have such a genius. Tung Yongxiang also laughed. But I only imitated the tiger's movements and breathing. There's nothing more profound. Tung Qingshan shook his head and said, simple is good. Simple is good. One step at a time. Tung Yunlong was extremely happy. That old guy from Li Jia village told me that his grandson created the fierce tiger fist. It's just a fake move. My grandson's tiger fist can produce inner strength. It's even stronger than his. Tung Qingshan was very clear that in Xing Yi martial arts, the 3 postures and 5-element boxing seemed simple, but in fact, it was the hardest to achieve results. Many Xing Yi experts practice the 12 forms of Xing Yi. Only when they achieve success in the 12 forms of Xing Yi could they gradually study the 5-element boxing and the 3 postures. It's better to just teach them the tiger fist than to teach them the 12 forms of Xing Yi. It's easier for them to achieve results if they practice the tiger fist. Tung Qingshan thought. The so-called tiger fist was actually the tiger fist of the 12 forms of Xing Yi. Grandfather, I want to pass this tiger fist to the clansmen. Tung Qingshan said. Good, good. Tung Yunlong nodded. Ha! If we have inner strength, who would dare to provoke our Tung Jia village? Tung Yongxiang was also very excited. Tung Yongfan, who was beside him, excitedly patted Tung Qingshan's shoulder and said, Qingshan, I, Tung Yongfan, am most proud of having a son like you. Ha! The group of clansmen were extremely excited. With the tiger fist, the strength of Tung Jia village would undergo a drastic change. All of you remember, Tung Yunlong turned his head and looked around. Qingshan created this tiger fist. Don't tell anyone about it. Keep it a secret. In the future, this tiger fist will be our Tung Jia village's unique skill. It will definitely not be taught to outsiders. Only to males, not females. Understood. Everyone nodded. Chapter 46. After all, girls would have to marry outside the clan. If the tiger fist was taught to a girl, it would be easy for the clan's secret technique to spread. Qingshan, how do you plan to teach them? Tung Yunlong looked at Tung Qingshan. Everyone in the room looked at Tung Qingshan. At this moment, Tung Qingshan's position in everyone's hearts rose once again. What kind of achievements would such a genius achieve in the future? No one dared to say anything. No matter what, Tung Qingshan's name would be the most dazzling in the history of the Tang clan. Tung Qingshan pondered and said, "Grandfather, I can't teach too many people at the same time. I want to choose 20 to 30 of the most outstanding people from the clan. Starting tomorrow, during the morning training period, let them follow me to the west side of the forest to learn the Tiger Fist." "Okay, that's it." Tung Yunlong nodded and smiled. "If I wasn't too old, I would also want to learn from you. Grandfather, you have a good body. You can also follow. If you can really cultivate inner strength, then you can also prolong your life." Tung Qingshan smiled. Okay. I have nothing to do, so I will also follow and learn." Tung Yunlong laughed. "Qingshan, can I learn?" Tung Yonglei hesitated and asked nervously. Ever since he lost his arm, Tung Yonglei looked very cheerful on the surface, but his heart was in pain. "Of course you can learn," Tung Qingshan hastily said. In the history of his previous world, there were tiger form fist masters who only had one arm. The Tiger Fist was designated as the clan's secret technique. From the second day onwards, 32 outstanding youths and teenagers were selected. The oldest was the chief, Tung Yunlong, and the youngest was the 8-year-old child, Tung Qinghai. Even Tung Yongfan, Tung Yongxiang, and the one-armed Tung Yonglei all participated in the training. Knowing that the Tiger Fist could cultivate inner strength, they were all very serious when learning it. "Qingshan, what's going on with the breathing? One moment, you're inhaling slowly and deeply. The next moment, you're holding your breath. And the next moment, you're asking us to breathe shallowly. You even have to coordinate your movements. It's so awkward." On the first day of learning the Tiger Fist, everyone felt uncomfortable. Tung Qinghu was the first to shout. "Listen to Qingshan and learn from Qingshan." Tung Yunlong glared at Tung Qinghu, scaring him into shutting up immediately. Tung Qingshan said with a smile, "Cousin, you may feel uncomfortable now, but when you are familiar with it, you will feel comfortable." Towards the end of the tiger form fist, one had to make others feel like they were a tiger. At the same time, the breathing rhythm had to be well coordinated. Therefore, everyone must listen carefully now. Don't be careless. In Xingyi martial arts, the form was secondary, while the intent was more important. However, that was only true for Xingyi grandmasters. The other clansmen had just started learning, so they had to take it one step at a time. Now, don't expect to be like a tiger in one go. You have to take it one step at a time. The movements, breathing, and other basic movements must be learned well. Only when you have the foundation can you practice the tiger form fist well. Tung Qingshan taught step by step. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Half a month, 1 month, 3 months, and 8 days later. In the forest to the west of Tangjia village, a group of clansmen were practicing the tiger form fist art. My muscles and bones feel slightly numb at night, and their growth speed has begun to accelerate. Now, I should have completely entered the physiological puberty period. Tung Qingshan watched the group of people practice and thought to himself, "Now, I can completely start my strongest plan." However, father, uncle, and the others' tiger form fist art haven't been able to produce inner strength. I have to watch over them. Tung Qingshan had already entered the physiological puberty period. The golden period of physiological puberty was usually around 3 to 4 years. These 3 to 4 years were the most important period of the body's development. Although the body would continue to grow taller in the future, the speed would obviously not be as fast as the past 3 to 4 years. Right now, I will look after Uncle and the others. I will temporarily do some simple training. When it's about time, I will enter the mountain and practice alone. Tung Qingshan made a decision. Moreover, this world is different from the world of my previous life. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is very abundant here. Uncle and the others should be able to produce inner strength very quickly. In Tung Qingshan's opinion, it was impossible to produce inner strength by relying on the tiger form fist art in his previous life. However, in this ancient era, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was abundant. Just the breathing method alone should be enough to produce inner strength. I produced inner strength. I produced inner strength. An ecstatic shout came from the group of people practicing the tiger form fist art. Tung Qingshan hastily turned his head and saw Tung Qinghu jump in excitement. Qinghu, you produced inner strength? Everyone surrounded him. Yes, I can feel it. Tung Qinghu nodded. But I can't use it. Can't use it? But Qingshan can use it and break the wooden bench. Tung Yonglei said. Patriarch Tang Yunlong said, I've heard that people who haven't practiced inner strength usually have their meridians blocked. Practicing inner strength is said to open the meridians. However, it is said that it is almost impossible to open all the meridians in the body. After all, Tung Yunlong was very knowledgeable and knew many things. Tung Qingshan walked over and said, Cousin, don't worry. If you continue to practice like this, inner strength will run through your arms and you'll be able to use it. Moreover, when you practice, inner strength can strengthen your body. At that time, your strength will also increase. The Tung Jia village clansmen knew nothing about inner strength. In their hearts, they only thought that inner strength was very magical. It can increase strength? The clansmen were all overjoyed. Yes, of course it can increase strength. Now, that cousin has produced inner strength. As long as we work hard, everyone else should be able to produce inner strength. Tung Qingshan said. Although this was what he said, Tung Qingshan understood that not everyone could absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to produce inner strength. It depended on one's aptitude. Although the selected people were the most outstanding in the village, only a small portion of them could produce inner strength. However, Tung Qingshan did not say this. Half a month later, Tung Yonglei, who had lost his arm, became the second person to produce inner strength. Tung Qingshan also understood that although his uncle had lost his arm, he probably secretly practiced day and night at home. It was no surprise that he was the second person to succeed. Another month passed, and his father Tung Yongfan and the 8-year-old Tung Qinghai produced inner strength. A group of clansmen were practicing the tiger fist, while Tung Qingshan stood upside down with his right index finger on the ground, practicing the strength of his fingers. Although Tung Qingshan was only 10 years old, he had the strength of 1,000 jin. Most importantly, he was young, weighed little, and had strong fingers, so he was able to do it. To him, standing upside down with one finger was only the basics. Phew! Tung Qingshan landed on the ground and stood properly. The clansmen also stopped practicing. Grandfather, father, from tomorrow onwards, everyone will practice the tiger fist by themselves. Tung Qingshan said. That's good. We all know the moves of the tiger fist. Qingshan, you go to your own things. Tung Yunlong said with a smile. Qingshan, I saw you practicing by the side during this period of time. Only then did I realize. Qingshan, your strength is much stronger than I expected. Tung Qingshan smiled modestly. Grandfather, father, I feel that the clan is not suitable for me to study the fist art and train. I have decided that from tomorrow onwards, other than leading the hunting team into the mountain to hunt, I will practice hard in the mountain during the day. I will come back at night. Practice hard in the mountain during the day? The group of clansmen discussed. Qingshan, what tools do you need? You can tell me, and I will make them for you. Tung Yongfan said, Why do you need to go into the mountain? Tung Qingshan hastily said, This time, I went into the mountain to observe the tigers and perfect my tiger fist. Maybe I can create an even more powerful fist art. As for the tools for training, of course I need them. When we get home, I will tell you what tools I need. Having seen Tung Qingshan's spear art, Tung Yongfan was not worried that Tung Qingshan would be in danger in the Great Yin Mountain. Tung Yunlong said, All right, no need to say anything. Li Jinfu from Li Jia village has been staying in a mountain for a few years, but Qingshan comes back every night. You don't need to stop him. Plus, the fierce tigers, bears, and wolves in a mountain are not a threat to Qingshan. Since the clan leader had spoken, no one said anything else. The hunting team only entered the mountain once every 2 days. On this day, the sky was just beginning to brighten. In the courtyard of Tung Qingshan's house, Qingshan, Be careful when you go into the mountain. Mother Yuan Lan reminded him worriedly. At the same time, she packed the bag for Tung Shan. Inside the bag was the Damascus steel spear that had been disassembled into 2 pieces and a few training tools that Tung Shan had requested. Don't worry, Mother. Tung Shan carried the bag on his back and patted the head of his little sister, Qingyu, who was standing beside him. Qingyu, listen to Father and Mother at home. I'm the most obedient brother, Qingyu said with a crisp voice. Tung Shan looked at his parents and took a deep breath. He grinned and said, Father, Mother, I'll go in the mountain first. There are many fierce beasts and poisonous snakes in the mountain. Be careful, Tung Yongfan finally said. Okay, Tung Shan nodded. Without hesitation, he walked out of the courtyard and left Tung Jia village. The world was silent. Tung Shan stood at the foot of the mountain and took a deep breath. The cold morning air made Tung Shan's head feel refreshed. Finally, I could start the strongest plan. Tung Shan felt his blood boil. He had prepared for this day for too long. Once a person's potential was squeezed out, his future achievements would be very low. When Tung Shan was young, he had never squeezed out the potential of his body. It had always been a process of nourishing his body, strengthening his blood essence and body, and increasing his vitality. The physiological growth period is the period of a person's life when his height increases the fastest. His bones, muscles, and internal organs grow the most rapidly. It is the best period to develop his potential. It is also the most dangerous period. Tung Shan was very clear about this. During puberty, it was easy to grow 10 centimeters taller. However, when the bones of the body were formed, it would be 1,000 times more difficult to grow 10 centimeters taller. During the physiological growth period, if the body was squeezed out too much, it would lead to irreparable regret. Wealth comes from danger. Moreover, with my Grandmaster realm, I can control my bones and muscles at any time. The physiological growth period is the golden period to develop one's potential. If I miss it, I won't have it again in the future. Tung Shan looked up at the mountain and said, There is a huge amount of internal strength in my body as energy storage. During the process of improving my body, the energy is consumed rapidly when my bones and muscles grow. Moreover, with my Grandmaster realm of internal martial arts, I can adjust it according to the actual situation. I don't know what level my body can reach with a combination of the two. In the history of his previous life, there had never been an internal martial arts grandmaster who was lucky enough to live in an era with abundant spiritual qi. There had also never been an internal martial arts grandmaster who had consciousness from infancy and started to consciously strengthen his body. For so many years, it could be said that Tung Shan had never taken a detour. His body could be said to be a benchmark of the limits of the human body. When a strongest plan succeeds, I will know how strong my body is. Tung Shan was looking forward to his future self. Let's begin. Tung Shan carried his backpack and stepped into the Great Yin Mountain to start his strongest plan. Chapter 47. Spring passed and autumn came. For years had passed. On the great Yin Mountain that had towered on this land since ancient times, the thick and strong trees, the messy weeds and brambles, the ground was covered with rotten fallen leaves, and the countless wild beasts that lived in this mountain didn't change much from 4 years ago. It was already the beginning of summer, and the forest of the Great Yin Mountain gradually had a hot and humid air. There wasn't a trace of wind, and the forest was so hot and humid that it was suffocating. Rustle, the quiet forest suddenly resounded with the sound of leaves fluttering. The sound was getting louder and louder. Phew! A figure appeared in the distance of the forest. The earth trembled slightly, and the figure had already traversed a distance of over 10 zhang. This was a young man wearing only shorts, barefooted, and his upper body was bare. The most frightening thing was that this young man was actually lifting a terrifying huge rock that was a few times bigger than his entire body. The young man's arms were as thick as the thighs of an ordinary teenager. At this moment, the muscles on his arms were like steel bars, bursting forth with terrifying strength as he steadily lifted this huge rock. At the same time, the young man's strong legs were also frighteningly thick. Every step he took had a terrifying strength of over 10,000 gene. His legs trampled on the ground of the forest, causing the earth to tremble as he dashed through the forest. The young man was either stepping on dead branches or leaping over dead trees on the ground. However, the young man who was lifting such a huge rock was as nimble as a monkey. He easily dashed barefooted without stopping. After a long time, the young man who was like a prehistoric monster finally stopped and threw the huge rock to the side. Boom! This huge rock drew an arc in the air and crashed to the side with a loud rumble. The branches and grasses at the side were smashed into pieces, and a large pit was formed on the ground. The strange thing was, the young man's muscles were bulging, and his shockingly thick arms and legs had actually changed. The thickness of his arms and legs had shrunk to the size of an ordinary strong person. He wasn't as hideous as before, and even his bulging muscles were hidden. Just by looking at the surface, one wouldn't be able to detect the frightening muscles hidden under the skin of his arms and legs. 2 hours of running. It's over. Tung Qingshan looked up at the double-headed mountain. For the past 4 years, Tung Qingshan had been challenging his limits every day. At the same time, with the clear perception of every part of his body in the Guru realm, Tung Qingshan had never exceeded the limit that his body could bear and caused damage to his body. Long-distance running was a must for Tung Qingshan every day. Endurance was a very important aspect of physical fitness. Secondly, long-distance running in the mountains could also train one's agility. There were simply too many muscles in the human body. It was impossible to train every muscle by relying on equipment alone. Even strengthening some muscles would suppress the development of other muscles. None of this was acceptable. Flexibility and speed were what Tung Qingshan valued the most. That boulder weighed at least 10,000 kilograms. In his previous life, only Tung Qingshan, who had reached the Grandmaster realm, could lift it. But now, Tung Qingshan could still run for 2 hours in the mountains while lifting a 10,000-kilogram boulder. With his endurance, he could probably fight against thousands of soldiers for a day and a night without any problem. Moreover, he could lift a 10,000-kilogram boulder as nimbly as a monkey. If he abandoned the boulder, his agility and speed would be unimaginable. Whoosh! Tung Qingshan leaped up several feet high. Then he used his hands to climb and his feet to step on the ground. He rushed to the top of the double-headed mountain at an extremely fast speed. If the hunters in the tribe wanted to climb the double-headed mountain, they had to follow the small path and walk around the mountain. It took a long time, but Tung Qingshan reached the top of the mountain in just a moment. There were a lot of rocks on the top of the mountain. Tung Qingshan suddenly swung his arm and lashed at a boulder that was as tall as a few people. The moment he got close to the boulder, Tung Qingshan's arm's speed suddenly increased. The muscles on his arm that were like cow tendons bulged. Pa! His arm lashed at the boulder like a whip lashing at the boulder. Immediately, cracks appeared on the boulder that had stood on the top of the mountain for God knows how many years. Pa! 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 Tung Qingshan's steps were agile. He moved around the boulder, and at the same time, his arms continuously lashed at the boulder. Every time he lashed, a big crack appeared on the boulder. It was unknown how many times he had lashed. Bang! Bang! The sound changed because Tung Qingshan was now attacking with his legs. Tung Qingshan sometimes whipped his legs and sometimes swept his legs. The shadows of his legs fell on the boulder one after another. Every time he hit the boulder would tremble and deep cracks would appear. A large amount of crushed stones would fall. Tung Qingshan suddenly shouted, and his right fist fiercely smashed at the center of the boulder. Boom! Wherever his fist landed, a large amount of cracks immediately appeared. At the same time, his right fist turned into a palm and stuck close to the surface of the boulder. His left fist smashed heavily on the palm of his right fist. A tremor was transmitted into the interior of the boulder. The boulder that was full of cracks and crushed stones completely collapsed with a loud bang. Crash! A large amount of crushed stones rolled everywhere. It was no longer difficult for the current Tung Shan to smash the boulder with his fists and legs. To destroy a boulder that was as tall as a few people, even if hundreds of people swung their big iron hammers and smashed the boulder, the speed of destruction would not be as fast as Tung Shan's speed. In terms of destructive power, the destructive power of Tung Shan's fists and legs had long surpassed that of the big iron hammers. It's time to take a break. Tung Shan smiled and directly jumped down from the top of the mountain. His whole body fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. Pa! Pa! In the process of falling, Tung Shan sometimes patted the mountain rocks with his hands and sometimes tapped the ground with his feet, so that the speed of his fall was within an acceptable range. This speed of descending the mountain was really too fast. Tung Shan suddenly stepped on a mountain wall. His whole body was like a fish. He suddenly jumped up and rushed to the water halfway down a mountain. Bang! Tung Shan entered the water, and water splashed everywhere. Then, Tung Shan floated on the surface of the lake. Ah, so comfortable. The bone-piercing cold caused all the muscles in Tung Shan's body to tremble. His whole body comfortably lay on the surface of the lake and actually did not sink. While training hard in the Great Yin Mountain, this frost jade pool was Tung Shan's temporary residence. His bag and clothes were all placed beside the frost jade pool. After all, when training hard, he wore clothes. With the intensity of Tung Shan's training, he would probably have to change into a new set of clothes every day. There was no other way. That was why Tung Shan only wore shorts when training. This frost jade pool is really strange. Tung Shan looked at the pool and sighed. The density is actually a bit higher than the density of a human body. On the surface of the water, people still do not sink. It's just like the Dead Sea in my previous world. The water of the frost jade pool was indeed strange. When people naturally floated in it, the density of the water was obviously higher than the density of a human body. Secondly, the temperature was maintained at an extremely low level all year round. According to Tung Shan's experience in his previous world, the temperature here was around -50 to 60 degrees Celsius. The surroundings of the frost jade pool were covered with frost, especially now that summer had just arrived. Other places in the Great Yin Mountain were still hot and humid, but this place was extremely cold. This caused the surroundings of the frost jade pool to naturally become foggy. Even at such a low temperature, the pool water still did not freeze. This made people click their tongues in admiration. Normally, when training, one's whole body would be sweating and very hot. Under those circumstances where the body was very hot, one would directly jump into the cold pool of -50 to 60 degrees Celsius. Even Tung Shan only dared to do this the year before last. After all, this kind of extreme heat and extreme cold stimulation would instantly cause the whole body to cramp. Their hearts would also not be able to withstand the pressure and suddenly die on the spot. When Tung Shan was 10 years old, his body was already extremely strong. He also had inner strength to protect his body. If at that time, he suddenly jumped into the frost jade pool while being covered in hot sweat from training, although he would not suddenly die, cramps in his body would still be affected. This kind of heat and cold stimulation also stimulates my skin and the subtle depths of my muscles, increasing the speed of my body's improvement. Tung Shan laid in the surface of the frost jade pool. The temperature was -10 degrees Celsius. He did not need to use inner strength at all. Just his muscles and skin could easily resist this kind of low temperature. However, it is obvious that I have already passed the optimal stage. The speed of my body's improvement has already sharply decreased. The strongest plan had already been carried out for 4 years. It could almost be said that the strongest plan had already ended. This was because during the physiological development period of the human body, the first 3 years were the 3 years where the improvement was the most astonishing. In the future, although the body would continue to develop perfectly, regardless of whether it was the speed of growth or other aspects, it would begin to sharply decrease. However, the improvement in these 4 years is slightly higher than what I expected. Tung Shan recalled the improvement in these 4 years and his heart was filled with joy. The results of these 4 years of hard training were also astonishing. The current Tung Qingshan's body was much stronger than when he reached the Grandmaster realm in his previous life. The current him estimated that he would only need 2 moves to kill Vishnu and Shiva. His body could be said to have bones of steel and extraordinary strength. It could be said that he was a human-shaped monster. Even bullets from his previous life could not think of breaking his skin. It was not difficult for him to lift a huge rock that weighed tens of thousands of jin. Of course, it was also difficult for Tung Qingshan to lift a huge rock that weighed tens of thousands of jin. That was why he chose to use a huge rock that weighed tens of thousands of jin for his long-distance running training. His fists and legs were as hard as steel. In his previous life, Tung Qingshan's hands were able to fight head-on against the metal gloves of the body-shattering machine Dolgotrov. Now, his fists and legs were even sharper. In his previous life, the current Tung Qingshan would definitely be an invincible existence. What about in the land of the 9 prefectures? What kind of level would a human-shaped monster like Tung Qingshan be? Living in a world with abundant spiritual qi of heaven and earth, my achievements are indeed much higher than in my previous life. Right now, the only meridians that have not been opened are the tiny meridians on my face. Tung Qingshan muttered to himself. In these 4 years, Tung Qingshan had put almost all of his energy into improving his body. As a result, the speed at which his meridians were opened had slowed down. When my meridians are opened, I can practice the godly tiger form technique and improve my body again. In my previous life, the godly tiger form technique almost doubled my body's quality in a short period of time. I wonder how effective the godly tiger form technique will be in a world with abundant spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Although the speed at which Tung Qingshan improved had decreased, but he still had the godly tiger form technique. The godly tiger form technique could only be practiced when all the meridians in his body were opened. Chapter 48. Chi-Chi. Cold air pervaded the surroundings of the frost jade pool. The figures floating on the surface of the pool also appeared blurry in the cold air. I can't see the source of the water in the frost jade pool. It looks like a stagnant pool, but the water doesn't stink at all. Moreover, the water level never drops. If I use a wooden pole to poke the bottom of the pool, I won't be able to reach the bottom. Tung Qingshan pondered. Yes, it's been almost a month since I last explored the bottom of the frost jade pool. Tung Qingshan used all his strength and stood in the pool. The water reached up to Tung Qingshan's chest. Compared to a month ago, my strength has improved a lot. Let me try again and see if I can reach the bottom of the pool. In the past few years, Tung Qingshan, who was curious about the miraculous nature of the frost jade pool, would often explore the bottom of the pool. However, he had never been able to reach the bottom of the pool. Splash! Swimming to the side of the pool, Tung Qingshan hugged a stone that weighed more than 100 jin. He took a deep breath and immediately sank towards the bottom of the pool. Actually, with Tung Qingshan's control of the strength of his muscles and bones, he could easily fall to the bottom of the pool as long as he controlled his strength well. However, the density of the water in the frost jade pool was much higher than that of ordinary river water. There were 2 ways to reach the bottom of the pool. One was to hug a stone, iron, or other heavy object, or use inner strength to press down. Of course, Tung Qingshan would not waste his inner strength by not using the simple method. Hugging a large stone, Tung Qingshan continued to fall. There were no weeds or living creatures in the frost jade pool. It was completely silent. As he sank, Tung Qingshan could clearly feel the water temperature dropping rapidly, becoming colder and colder. However, at the beginning, Tung Qingshan could still resist it by relying on his strong body. The surface of the frost jade pool is only 7 or 8 meters wide and a dozen meters long, but the depth is so shocking. Tung Qingshan hugged the stone and continued to sink. The frost jade pool is halfway up the double-headed mountain. Now, it has already sunk more than 100 meters. It should be deep inside the Twin Peak Mountain. The double-headed mountain was just a small mountain on the Great Yin Mountain. Its height was only 300 to 400 meters. So cold, Tung Qingshan's muscles trembled slightly. At this moment, the water was so cold that it felt like needles piercing into every part of Tung Qingshan's skin, penetrating into his bones. I remember this protruding rock. This time, I dived 4 meters more than last time before using my inner force. The vigorous inner strength in his body had already quickly circulated in his body to resist the extreme cold. The deeper one went into the frost jade pool, the wider it became. Currently, it was more than 10 meters wide. However, Tung Qingshan still couldn't find the bottom of the pond. Now we have passed the foot of the double-headed mountain. Tung Qingshan estimated the depth. It is really dark here. Even with Tung Qingshan's eyesight, he could only see within 5 to 6 meters. One could imagine how dark the depths of the cold pond were. But Tung Qingshan still hadn't reached the bottom of the pond. Actually, with Tung Qingshan's strength, holding his breath underwater for 2 to 4 hours wasn't difficult. As an expert of the internal martial arts, training the internal organs was of utmost importance. Tung Qingshan's strong lungs allowed him to persist underwater for a long time. This was one of the reasons. His lung capacity alone wasn't enough for him to persist underwater for 2 to 4 hours. The most important reason was Tung Qingshan's main meridians, including the branches that connected the pores on his skin, were almost all unobstructed. With Tung Qingshan's control of the blood and qi in his body, he could completely absorb the oxygen in the water through his pores to replenish his energy. Of course, this replenishment speed was much slower than breathing through his nose and mouth. It could only maintain a low level of consumption, and he couldn't make any intense movements. If he had a fierce battle underwater, with Tung Qingshan's strong internal organs, he would probably have to come up to the surface to breathe after a short while. It's getting colder. Tung Qingshan felt that even his bones, which were covered by his fascia and skin, were being stimulated by the cold. With such a low temperature, even if Tung Qingshan used his inner strength, he still wouldn't be able to withstand it. I can't go on like this. Tung Qingshan loosened his grip, and the stone fell towards the bottom of the water. His entire body, however, was affected by the buoyancy and floated upwards. Splash! Tung Qingshan's head popped out of the water. The water at the surface of the water actually makes me feel warm. Huh? Tung Qingshan laughed. Compared to the depths of the frost jade pool, the water at the surface of the frost jade pool was indeed considered warm. Tung Qingshan also understood that this was an illusion of the human body. For example, in the winter, the tap water would sometimes feel very warm. But in the summer, the tap water would feel very cold. It was the same principle. The water at the bottom of the pool could be considered extremely cold. After experiencing extreme cold, it wasn't strange for the water at the surface of the pool to feel warm. The water pressure at the depth of 200 to 300 meters is really high. Tung Qingshan took a deep breath to make his internal organs feel better. An ordinary person could only dive 10 meters, but the pressure was too much to bear. Tung Qingshan remembered that in his previous life, the world record for unarmed diving was around 100 meters. Only people who had trained for a long time could reach such a level. In his previous life, even a grandmaster of the internal martial arts who possessed inner strength couldn't bear to dive more than 200 meters. The density of the water in the frost jade pool was much higher than normal water. Although Tung Qingshan only dived 200 to 300 meters this time, it was equivalent to diving almost 400 meters in normal water. With such water pressure, even with Tung Qingshan's strong body, he still felt uncomfortable. His chest felt stuffy, and he needed to use his inner strength to relieve the pressure. Every month I dived to the bottom of the pool. The muscles, bones, and even the 5 viscera and 6 bowels would be stimulated by the extreme cold. This would also help strengthen the muscles, bones, and viscera. In the past few years, Tung Qingshan had also discovered such a rule. Every time he dived, his 5 viscera and 6 bowels would become stronger in the future during training. Just like how muscles would become stronger when stimulated, The viscera would also become stronger when stimulated. However, this kind of extreme stimulation, Tung Shan didn't dare to do it often. He only did it once a month or so. Let's go ashore. Tung Shan left the frost jade pool and used the towel in his bag to wipe his body. He then put on his clothes and trousers. He then took out the two parts of the long spear and combined them into one. This wrought iron spear was no longer the same one from 4 years ago. Because Tung Shan was much taller now, he switched to a 9 chi long wrought iron spear that weighed 68 jin. Phew. Tung Shan began to practice his spear art at the side of the frost jade pool. The sky gradually darkened, and the clansmen who were farming outside of Tongjia village returned. Many people gathered at the busiest training field, and it was noisy. Sister Lan, your family's Qing Shan is back. A woman's voice sounded from the training field. Mother Yuan Lan, who was at the training field, turned her head and saw Tung Shan, who was wearing cotton clothes and trousers and carrying a bag, walk in from the side door beside the main entrance of Tongjia village. At the same time, he smiled and greeted the surrounding clansmen. The clothed Tung Shan looked very delicate and pretty. Because he practiced internal martial arts, there wasn't a single scar on his body. Although his facial features weren't very handsome, they could still be considered delicate and pretty. No one would have thought that such a delicate and pretty young man possessed such a frightening strength. Mother, Tung Shan shouted from afar. I was waiting for you to come home for dinner. Yuan Lan looked at her son and smiled until her eyes were squinting. Beside Yuan Lan, there was a cute girl who was almost 6 chi tall. This was Tung Shan's 11-year-old sister, Tung Qingyu. Girls usually developed earlier than boys. Tung Shan's family's living conditions were good, so Tung Qingyu's body had already started growing. Brother, my stomach is growling. Tung Qingyu purposely shouted. Okay, let's go home and eat. Tung Shan dotingly walked over and patted his sister's little head. Tung Qingyu also giggled. She was used to Tung Shan's doting actions. Shan, you're back. Haha, Shan, don't forget to go hunting in the mountains tomorrow. On the training field, many people enthusiastically greeted Tung Shan. In these 4 years, Tung Shan's status in Tongjia village became higher and higher. During the annual sacrifice 2 years ago, Tung Shan once lifted a 2,000 jin boulder in one go, causing the clansmen to be amazed. Everyone guessed that the current Tung Shan could probably lift a 3 to 4,000 jin boulder. After all, for the simple clansmen, being able to lift 3 to 4,000 jin was already terrifying enough. For Tung Shan, if it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't reveal all his strength. Moreover, during last year's annual sacrifice, cousin Tung Qinghu, who practiced the tiger fist, also lifted a 2,000 jin boulder. In the clan, his strength was second only to Tung Shan. At the wooden table in Tung Shan's house, a family of 4 was eating dinner together. Because Tung Shan only returned home at night, Tung Shan's family had the most sumptuous meal. Shan, eat. Yuan Lan picked up a piece of chicken thigh and put it in Tung Shan's bowl. She also picked up a piece of chicken wing and gave it to her daughter Qingyu. Thank you, mother. Tung Shan smiled. In his previous life, he didn't feel fatherly and motherly love, but in this life he felt it. Tung Shan was very satisfied. Shan, have you heard? Right now, a powerful gang has appeared in our city. The mature and steady father, Tung Yongfan, opened his mouth and said. Tung Yongfan had long treated Tung Shan as an adult. Within the clan, Tung Shan's words were also very useful. Father, are you talking about the Iron Mountain gang? Tung Shan frowned and said, Yesterday, when we were hunting, I heard others mention it. Yes. Tung Yongfan was somewhat worried. This Iron Mountain gang is very arrogant and doesn't even put the White Horse gang in their eyes. In just half a year, they have become the second largest gang in the entire city. It is said that the core gang members are more than 3,000 people, and the 3 leaders are all powerful experts. In just half a year, they have expanded to such a large scale. The Iron Mountain gang is in urgent need of silver. Many villages in the East City are threatened by them. Tung Ching Shan slightly nodded. The White Horse Gang collected the annual tribute to maintain the White Horse Gang's normal expenditure. As for the Iron Mountain Gang, they rapidly developed, so they naturally needed more silver. It is said that they collected a lot of silver. Today, I just received the news that yesterday, because the Iron Mountain Gang demanded too much silver, the Blackwood Village, 30 li away, refused to pay. Who would have thought that the Iron Mountain Gang would slaughter all of the 1,000 people in the Blackwood Village? What? Slaughter the village? No matter how calm Tung Ching Shan was, he was still shocked by this news. Chapter 49. Although this world was very chaotic, it had been a long time since the massacre of a village had happened within the borders of East City, something that angered even the heavens and the people. Mother Yuan Lan exclaimed, "Brother Fan, is the Iron Mountain Gang really that crazy? Don't they know that doing this will cause the anger of many villages in East City? Also, the Blackwood Village. In our clan, a few merry girls are from the Blackwood Village." Yes, so the clan is very noisy right now. Tung Yong Fan frowned and said, "But what can we do? This Iron Mountain Gang is too cruel." Tung Ching Shan's heart was also filled with anger. Slaughtering the village was too inhumane. Tung Yong Fan said, "There is no other way. According to what we know, the 3 leaders of the Iron Mountain Gang are all famous inner strength experts who roam the land of the 9 prefectures. Each of them is very ruthless. I think slaughtering the Blackwood Village is to show the other villages. This is killing the chicken to warn the monkey." Tung Ching Shan nodded. There was no need to slaughter a village just for money. It was obviously to intimidate the other villages. "Father, mother, brother, will that gang come to our village?" Qing Yu asked worriedly. "What I'm most worried about is," Tung Yong Fan said worriedly, "the Iron Mountain Gang will very likely come to our Tung Jia village. To be more accurate, they will definitely come to collect money. The problem is, when will they come? We have to be prepared for this." Tung Ching Shan nodded. This was related to the survival of the clan, so they couldn't be careless. After thinking for a while, Tung Ching Shan said, "Father, how about this? From tomorrow onwards, the hunting squad will be led by Qinghu. With Qinghu's current strength, there won't be any problems in the mountains. As for me, I won't go into the mountains to train. I will stay in the village, just in case." Tung Yong Fan nodded. "I think so too, but this is only one aspect. There are many other things that need to be changed. For example, those who practice the Tiger Fist should be moved to the training field. They could defend against any enemies that might appear at any time. They usually practice the Tiger Fist in the forest. However, it would take some time to run from the forest to the training field. If the Iron Mountain Gang doesn't ask for a lot of money, we can take a step back. If the asking price is really too high, then we can only choose to resist," Tung Yong Fan said. Okay, Tung Ching Shan had already made up his mind. If danger really appeared, there would be no need for him to hide his strength. He could just go on a killing spree. To Tung Ching Shan, the most precious family members in his life were his father, mother, little sister, and many of the elders who took care of him. All of them were in the clan. The clan was his root, and it was also the root of his family. He swore that he would protect Tung Jia village even if he died. The situation isn't that bad yet. Tung Yong Fan also felt that the topic was heavy, so he smiled and said, "Our Tung Jia village is much stronger than the Blackwood village. The Iron Mountain Gang will also know what to choose." Tung Jia village was indeed much stronger than Blackwood village. In the past 4 years, there were more than 30 clansmen who managed to cultivate inner strength. Of course, there were hundreds of clansmen who had practiced the Tiger Fist, but only about 30 of them had achieved inner strength. The ratio was indeed low. However, the clansmen who had achieved inner strength possessed astonishing destructive power. If the Iron Mountain Gang thinks that we are as easy to bully as the Blackwood Village, then they are wrong, Tung Ching Shan said with a smile, but his heart was filled with killing intent. At a crucial moment, Tung Ching Shan would never be lenient. The news of the massacre of the Blackwood village spread quickly. All the clansmen of Tungjia village quickly knew about it. Tungjia village also became jittery. All the men of the village trained in the training field. Even if they weren't, they would be at home. Very few of them left the village. Only the 30 members of the hunting squad would occasionally go out to hunt. As for the clan's #1 expert, Tung Qingshan, he also stayed in the village and didn't enter the mountain. All of Tungjia village was prepared to face the enemy. In this chaotic era, if one wanted to protect the clan, they could only rely on themselves. The martial arts field was in an uproar. The clansmen were either practicing their spear arts or the tiger fist. There were also clansmen who were lifting stone weights, rolling iron balls, and carrying water buckets to build up their strength. Although these training methods were simple, they were very effective. Under the threat of danger, the clansmen trained even harder. The women, on the other hand, did farming, washing, cooking, taking care of the children, and many other trivial tasks. The strong men only needed to train hard. Only the weak men would be busy with trivial tasks like the women. Second mother, don't cry. 3 women were washing clothes as they spoke together. One of the women's eyes were red. My little brother was killed. He was killed by the Iron Mountain gang. The woman said as tears flowed down her cheeks. My little brother was the most obedient. When he was young, he liked to sleep with me. He loved to eat the flatbread I made. She said while sobbing, but he died just like that. The other women's eyes also turned red from her words. Second mother, your family's greatly village is fine. Only a few people died. The Iron Mountain gang took the money and left. That Blackwood village was slaughtered. My husband's 3rd brother's daughter-in-law, her parents, younger brothers, and younger sisters all died. Sigh. The women sighed. It's better to marry into our Tungjia village. Yes, Tungjia village is a famous and powerful village within a radius of 10 li. In my hometown, I have a niece called Fonglan. She is very beautiful. I also want to introduce her to the men of Tungjia village. The women discussed among themselves. In this era, which village was strong and not bullied? Then it would be easy for the men of this village to find women. After all, parents also had to think about their children. Sending them to a strong village where they could eat well, wear warm clothes, and not be bullied was already a good life in their dreams. The Iron Mountain gang has already gone to many villages. I don't know when they will come to our village. Don't jinx it. I don't want to see those bastards come my entire life. While the discussion was going on, the earth suddenly trembled. The sound of horse hoofs. Almost everyone in the entire training field turned their heads to look at the entrance of the village. The White Horse Gang collected the annual tribute every year, so everyone was already familiar with the sound of horse hooves. The earth trembling was obviously caused by the sound of horse hooves. However, this time, it wasn't the White Horse Gang that came. Today, the expressions of Tung Qinghu's group of people who didn't go hunting and were instead on the training field changed greatly. This was a cavalry troop. With just a glance, they couldn't see the end of this cavalry troop. It was very obvious this troop had many people and horses. It's the Iron Mountain Gang. A mournful shout rang out. Ha! Boys of Tungjia village. A loud laugh rumbled like thunder. The person at the front of the densely packed cavalry troop was a strong, bald man wearing armor. The horse this bald man was sitting on was completely red and 8 feet tall. It was the Scarlet Flame horse from Durong province that was worth 1,000 taels of silver. On the saddle of the Scarlet Flame horse, there were 2 huge copper round hammers. There were small awls on the hammers. Just by looking at it, one could tell that each of these copper round hammers weighed 100 jin. The bald man suddenly flew up from the Scarlet Flame horse as light as a feather. At the same time, he held the 2 copper hammers with both hands. The 2 copper hammers were connected by an iron chain that was at least 1 zhang long. The bald man laughed loudly and suddenly waved the copper hammer in his left hand. At the same time, he shouted, "Open!" The big iron hammer streaked across the sky like a meteor, creating a terrifying, ear-piercing whistling sound as it smashed onto the main gate of Tungjia village. Boom! The entire main gate trembled and suddenly burst open with a bang. The broken pieces of thick wood flew everywhere. Afterwards, the bald man withdrew his copper hammers and descended from the sky. The scarlet flame horse seemed to understand human nature and actually ran over, causing the bald man to land on the horse. How is this possible? Tung Chinghu and the others sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared dumbfoundedly at the fragments of the main gate. The main gate of the Tongjia village was built using some of the hard giant wood from the Great Yin Mountain. Even if a dozen strong men carried wooden stakes and smashed it, they still wouldn't be able to break it open. In the past, the leader of the cavalry under the command of the Yangzhou salt merchant had cleverly split open the iron gate. However, this bald man had directly smashed the gate. It's impossible to break open the main gate without the strength of 10,000 jin. This was what Tung Yunlong had said. At this moment, the clansmen were completely stunned. Could it be this bald man had the strength of 10,000 jin? Rumble, under the leadership of the bald leader, a large number of mounted gangsters rushed into the training field like a gust of wind. Get lost. The mounted gangsters laughed loudly and wantonly hacked at the Tung clansmen on the training field with the machetes in their hands. Chapter 50. The training field was in chaos. The mounted gangsters used the speed of their war horses to swing their sabers. Each saber definitely had the strength of 1,000 jin. How could an ordinary person withstand it? Clang! The saber chopped the spear shaft, cutting it in half. It forcefully cut a large wound on the clansman's body, causing his flesh to flip and blood to flow. Second brother. The other clansmen hurriedly dragged the injured clansman to the back while thrusting the long spears in their hands to defend against the saber-wielding mounted gangsters. The mounted gangsters laughed wildly. Who? A fierce mounted gangster wearing iron armor and a scarf on his head suddenly waved his large saber from atop his war horse and chopped down towards the head of a Tong clan clansman. The clansman couldn't defend in time and was about to be chopped to death. Die! The mounted gangster laughed sinisterly. At this moment, Xiao, a Damascus steel spear pierced through the air and blocked the saber with a clang. The person holding this Damascus steel spear was the great spear master of Tongjia village, Tung Yongxiang. Tung Yongxiang was one of the few brave men in the village. After practicing the tiger fist for 4 years, his body also had inner strength, and his physical strength had greatly increased. Come down, Tung Yongxiang roared. The Damascus steel spear fiercely lashed out, directly suppressing the machete and lashing the mounted bandit's body. With a pong sound, the mounted bandit's entire body was thrown into the air, smashing into a nearby mounted bandit and rolling on the ground. Lululu, the entire group of mounted gangsters finally stopped. The leader of the mounted gangsters, the bald strong man riding the scarlet flame horse, suddenly turned his head and stared at Tung Yongxiang. Unexpectedly, he laughed loudly. Ha! The rumors outside say that the men of Tongjia village are brave and have some strength. You didn't disappoint me. The Iron Mountain Gang's strategy for collecting money was very simple. They would rush up and chop a few people, regardless of whether they were dead or alive. Then they would ask for money. The great leader of the Iron Mountain Gang, Wang Taizhan, once said this in their lair. We are robbers, we are bandits. Because the commoners are afraid of bandits, they hand over the annual tribute. Not afraid? Not afraid? Why do they hand over the tribute? The White Horse Gang's accumulated power is too deep. Since our Iron Mountain Gang has just been established, we must use ruthless methods to intimidate E-City. When he arrived at those villages, he didn't care about anything else. He would first kill a few people, regardless of whether they were dead or alive. Naturally, the commoners would be afraid. We'll only pay if we're afraid. Otherwise, they'll think that we have a good temper. As for those troublemakers, get rid of them for me. Kill anyone who dares to resist. The Iron Mountain Gang had a total of 3 leaders. The other 2 leaders also agreed with their big brother's words. The 3 brothers had wandered in the land of the 9 prefectures for dozens of years and had long gained their own understanding of the ways of the world. Want money? He had to be ruthless. Second head, that kid's strength is pretty good. Let me handle him. Leave it to me. I'll finish him off in 2 moves. Around the leader of the bandits, there was a group of men riding cyan-maned warhorses. These men were fighting to be the first to speak. This azure-maned warhorse was the azure-maned horse of the Qing province, and it also cost a few hundred taels of silver. The horses that the ordinary mounted gangsters rode on had earthy yellow fur. They were the local horses of Yangzhou and only cost a few dozen taels of silver to buy one. The kind of horse one rode could also show one's status among the mounted gangsters. Everyone, step back, Tung Yongxiang hastily said. The clansmen on the training field hastily retreated together, raised their long spears, and were on high alert. At this time, many of the clansmen who were originally staying at home had already rushed to the training field. As a large village with a population of more than 2,000, the village was still very big. Tung Qingshan, Tung Yongfan, and the others were also on their way. Senzi, I'll give you a chance. You deal with the one with the iron spear. The leader of the mounted gangsters said with a smile. The troublemaker of the enemy must be eliminated. Yes, second head. Behind him, one of the 18 men riding cyan-mane horses held a long saber that was only 2 fingers wide. The back of the saber was relatively thin, and it looked a bit like a sword. Old man die, Sanzi sneered. Tung Yongxiang was already over 40 years old. Phew! This mounted gangster, named Sanzi, held a long and narrow saber in his hand. With a leap, he actually leaped more than 1 zhang high from his horse. He was like a soaring eagle pouncing towards Tung Yongxiang. The long saber in his hand was also raised above his head, and with a terrifying force, he chopped down from the sky. Tung Yongxiang stood calmly, tightly gripping the long spear in his hand. Xiao! Tung Yongxiang's eyes widened, and the long spear in his hand was like a poisonous dragon coming out of its cave, thrusting forward. The expression of the young mounted gangster in midair changed slightly. The long saber in his hand increased in speed, and with a blur, it actually chopped the head of the Damascus steel long spear. Clang! Clang! 2 consecutive sounds rang out, and the Damascus steel long spear was repelled to the side. Humph! The young mounted gangster sneered, and the momentum of his saber changed. With a flip of his hand, he stabbed straight towards Tung Yongxiang's chest. Yongxiang! At this time, Tung Yongfan, who had just rushed to the training field from the weapon shop, saw this scene from afar. His expression changed greatly, but he was unable to save Tung Yongxiang in time. At this time, stop! Like the sound of thunder in the sky, this loud shout even caused the horses to jump in fright and caused several mounted gangsters to fall off their horses, rolling to the ground. At the same time, a terrifying sharp whistling sound rang out. Xiao! A terrifying whistling sound that could move one's soul. A flying dagger that pierced through space. An expert. The expression of the mounted gangster named San Zi changed greatly. The speed of the flying dagger was too fast for him to dodge. Pooh! A cold glint flashed past. The mounted gangster named Sanzi cried out in pain and fell to the ground. He clutched his chest and curled up on the ground, blood continuously seeping out. There was also a bloody hole on his back. The flying dagger had entered his chest and exited from his back, directly hitting the wooden fence of the Tengjia village's training field. An expert, the leader sitting on the scarlet flame horse, the second leader, turned his head to look in the direction of the flying dagger. The other mounted gangsters on cyan bristle horses also turned their heads to look. They saw a young man with a delicate face, wearing cotton clothes, holding a wrought iron great spear. He had already arrived at the forefront of the Tang Jia clansmen. What a fast speed! The second leader was shocked. Others might not be able to identify the source of the loud shout, but he could. Just now, this young man wearing cotton clothes was still over 10 zhang away, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived here. This speed is really fast. Also, his inner strength is extremely strong. Based on that loud shout, the second leader had already determined that the opponent was an inner strength expert. Qingshan, Qingshan, you're here. The men of the Teng Jia clan were all overjoyed. Tung Qingshan nodded and looked at Tung Yongxiang, who was beside him. Uncle, are you all right? I'm fine. However, Qingshan, you have to be careful. There are many experts among these mounted gangsters. Tung Yongxiang lowered his voice and said, especially the leader riding on the Scarlet Flame horse. It was him who used the Scarlet Copper Hammer to destroy the main gate of our Tengjia village. He definitely has the strength of 10,000 Jin. He is a first-rated warrior. Only those who had the strength of 10,000 Jin could be considered a first-rated warrior. Don't worry, uncle. Leave this place to me, Tung Qingshan said. At the same time, Tung Qingshan also let out a sigh of relief. Previously, he was practicing the 3 postures of Xing Yi in his own courtyard. When he heard the sound of hooves, he immediately rushed over. However, from the time the mounted gangsters broke the main gate, rushed in, and attacked Tung Yongxiang, the time was too short. Tung Qingshan's house was quite a distance from the training field. After all, this was a big village with over 2,000 people. Fortunately, Tung Qingshan's speed was extremely fast, and he managed to catch up at the last moment. Greetings, heroes of the Iron Mountain Gang. Tung Qingshan cupped his hands, and his gaze was like a knife as it swept across the group of mounted gangsters of the Iron Mountain Gang. Just now, because of his loud shout, many mounted gangsters were scared and fell off their horses. It was obvious that many mounted gangsters were still somewhat afraid of this Tung Qingshan. Ah, what a man! The second leader loudly praised. I didn't expect Tengjia village to have such a man. I admire you. Breaking the main gate of my Tengjia village with one hammer. I also admire the heroes of the Iron Mountain Gang, Tung Qingshan said in a clear voice. While they were talking, the men at home also rushed to the training field one by one. Tung Yunlong also arrived, but he didn't say anything. However, I have to give my brothers an explanation for injuring the people of the Iron Mountain Gang. You have 2 choices. First, pay me 10,000 taels of silver. 2, I have 13 little fellows under me. If they make a move, if you can survive, I'll kill you. If you can survive, then I will forget about this matter. The leader of the mounted gangsters said condescendingly. The second leader also knew that if he didn't suppress Tung Qingshan today, he probably wouldn't be able to get much silver from Tengjia village. Oh, then I will see what the heroes of the Iron Mountain Gang have up their sleeves. Tung Qingshan lightly laughed. Very good, you have guts. The leader of the mounted gangsters waved his hand. Make a circle. Brothers, let's see what the men of Tengjia village are capable of. The mounted gangsters immediately made a large circle. Qingshan, Tung Yunlong, Tung Yongfan, and the others said worriedly from the side. Qingshan, if you can't resist, we will just give you some silver. Forget about it. Tung Yunlong lowered his voice and whispered. His mother, Yuan Lan, was also looking at her son worriedly. Don't worry, grandfather. Tung Qingshan relaxed and smiled. His smile seemed to infect Tung Yunlong and the others. Since the leader of the Iron Mountain Gang wants me to give some pointers to his 13 little fellows, I can't not give him face. I will help him and give pointers to his subordinates. Tung Qingshan intentionally let the mounted gangsters hear his words. I'm talking big. Aren't you afraid of cutting your tongue off? With an angry shout, the 13 men on the cyan-bristled horses all jumped up. Hua! 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 In midair, the 13 men pulled out sharp swords from their backs. If you have the ability, come and fight with us. The 13 used all-held long swords. Generally, in a battle with a large number of horses, machetes were more advantageous. In a one-on-one fight, long swords were more advantageous. These youths all carried long swords on their backs. It was obvious that they had been immersed in swords for a long time. The mounted gangsters have formed such a large circle. Once Qingshan enters the circle, he will be in danger. If the horse bandits don't keep their word, it will be dangerous if a group of horse bandits surround and attack us. Tung Qinghu lowered his voice and said worriedly, Qingshan, big brother Qingshan. Many of the clansmen looked at Tung Qingshan worriedly. Tung Qingshan only smiled. With a long spear in his hand, he directly walked into the empty circle in the middle of the mounted gangsters. He faced the many mounted gangsters alone. The 13 sword-wielding men had already surrounded Tung Qingshan. The leader sneered and said, We will give you a chance to make the first move. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to make the first move. Believe it or not, I will pierce your throat with a knife. Tung Qingshan smiled and looked at the sword-wielding man. The sword-wielding man's expression changed slightly. These people had all seen Tung Qingshan's flying knife just now. Fellow junior brothers, attack. The leader of the group shouted. Chapter 51. Tung Qingshan had read the earthly ranking written by the Wanxiang sect, so he had some understanding of the experts in the world. In the land of the 9 prefectures, people like Master Hongxi of the White Horse Gang were extremely powerful experts at the peak of the post-liminary realm. He established the White Horse Gang, so he definitely had a group of experts with inner strength. This Iron Mountain Gang actually dared to contend against the White Horse Gang, so they also have some inner strength experts. However, mounted bandits are mounted bandits after all, so they can't attract true experts. I'm afraid these are all inner strength experts who didn't succeed in their respective sects and came out to join the bandits. Tung Qingshan was very clear about his own strength. The current him was much stronger than the peak state of his previous life. Even if these people's swords pierced his body, they probably wouldn't be able to break his skin and muscles. Clang, 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 clang. 13 sharp swords with a cold glint pierced towards Tung Qingshan, who was in the middle. The long spear in Tung Qingshan's hand suddenly danced, as if a whirlwind had swept through the surroundings, blocking all the sharp swords at the same time. Good spear art. Watching this scene, the eyes of the Iron Mountain Gang's second leader lit up. However, this spear art, I have never seen it before. Which sect spear art is this? This second leader was very knowledgeable. He had seen many spear arts from different sects, but he couldn't see through Tung Qingshan's spear art. The Tung Clan's clansmen watched this scene with anxiety. In their eyes, the long swords of the 13 men were like a continuous torrential rain. They were afraid that if Tung Qingshan was a bit slower, he would be stabbed. Qingshan, Mother Yuanlan was very nervous. Mother, brother is the most powerful. Qingyu, who was at the side, believed in her brother. Not only were the Tung Clan's clansmen concerned, but the mounted bandits of the Iron Mountain Gang also attached great importance to this fight. If they lost, it would be a very shameful thing. After Tung Qingshan and the 13 swordsmen fought for a long time, the expression of the second manager, who was riding on the Scarlet Flame Horse, sank. He shouted, Quickly finish this. After fighting for so long, the second manager was still not able to injure Tung Qingshan. This caused the second manager to feel somewhat dissatisfied. Tung Qingshan had actually been observing his opponent's swordplay. After all, he had never really fought against an inner force expert since he came to this world. This swordplay is quite extraordinary. Every move is as smooth as flowing water, and they are connected to each other. Especially after infusing it with inner force, the power is really great. But it's very obvious. These swordsmen are still at the form stage and have yet to comprehend the meaning of the sword art. Tung Qingshan's spear technique seemed complicated. In reality, from beginning to end, he had used the same move, mixed elements first sealing technique. When Tung Qingshan practiced his spear, he practiced his intent. His intent was completely correct. Even a casual move from him contained great might. That's all there is to it. The person who created this sword formation is very impressive. But when these people use it, the power is just SOSO. Tung Qingshan thought to himself. Chaotic sword style. The leader of the 13 swordsmen shouted. Suddenly, the shadows of the 13 sharp swords, like 13 silver flowers, covered Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan, who was in the center of the sword formation, suddenly shouted, "Let go!" The 13 swordsmen felt that the power contained in the long spear in Tung Qingshan's hand had suddenly reached an unimaginable level. It was as if a huge rock had smashed onto their long swords. Clang, 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 clang. With a series of chaotic sounds, the 13 long swords fell to the ground. How could this be? The 13 swordsmen looked at Tung Qingshan in the center in fear. Their right hands were trembling, and the web between their thumb and forefinger was torn open, and blood was flowing out. Silence. Many of the mounted gangsters on the training field were stunned. Almost all the Iron Mountain gang members who could ride cyan bristled horses were inner force experts. This was too unbelievable. Tung Qingshan strode towards his clansmen. The mounted gangsters moved aside in fear, allowing Tung Qingshan to return to the clansmen. Good fight. The group of clansmen of Tungjia village, on the other hand, cheered excitedly. Qingshan, you did well. Grandfather Tung Qingshan also patted Tung Qingshan's shoulder. Tung Qingshan smiled and turned to look at the clansmen behind him. He slightly pressed his hand down, and the clansmen of Tungjia village quieted down. Second leader. The 13 swordsmen walked to the side of the second leader in shame. The second leader's face was unsightly as he shouted, "Why are you still not getting on your horses? Are you going to embarrass yourself here?" The 13 swordsmen immediately retreated to the side. The second leader looked at Tung Qingshan and laughed. Good spear skills. Then the matter of you injuring my subordinates will be forgotten." The second leader rode on the Scarlet Flame horse and laughed condescendingly. "If your Tungjia village gives us an annual tribute, we will immediately leave." Annual tribute? Tung Qingshan said. "May I ask, second leader, how much is this annual tribute?" Hearing the 13 swordsmen call the second leader, Tung Qingshan knew that this person was the second leader of the Iron Mountain Gang. Legend has it that among the 3 leaders of the Iron Mountain Gang, the strongest was the great leader. 2 silver taels per person. The second leader said in a clear voice, 2 silver taels. Isn't this eating people? Why is it so high? They don't want us to live. The clansmen of Tungjia village were in an uproar. Even Tung Yunlong and Tung Yongfan's expressions changed. 2 silver taels per person. This annual tribute ratio was too exaggerated. One must know that the White Horse Gang only charged half a silver tael per person. Second leader. Tung Qingshan's expression was not very good. Isn't 2 silver taels per person too high? Hi. Your Tungjia village is a famous and wealthy village in the surrounding area. Your village should have more than 2,000 people. However, I will only count it as 2,000. 2 silver taels per person, so it shouldn't be difficult for you to take out 4,000 taels of silver. The second boss sneered. We charge 2 silver taels per person for those poor villages like the Great Plum Village. Today, I'm giving Little Brother face and only charge you 2 silver taels per person. Tung Qingshan finally understood why the Blackwood village refused to pay, resulting in the village being slaughtered. This was because the Iron Mountain Gang was too greedy. One must know, the Tungjia village's clan treasury had an estimated surplus of around 20,000 taels of silver. Of course, there was also the snow mink and wolf king fur. However, if it wasn't for Tung Qingshan, there would be no snow mink and wolf king fur. Even the Yangzhou salt merchant's business would have been swallowed up by 10,000 taels of silver. The living conditions of the Tungjia village's clansmen were not bad. Normally, they consumed a lot of money, causing the clan to not have much surplus money. If they charged 4,000 taels of silver in one go, after a few years, the Tungjia village would have to tighten their belts to save money. In the future, they wouldn't dare to eat meat, as they would have to sell the meat they hunted. They also wouldn't dare to buy cloth to make new clothes. They would have to save money. Second leader, Tung Qingshan, said in a clear voice, "You should also know that we mountain people only earn a little bit of silver a year. A family's annual income is only a dozen or so taels of silver. This is already very good. However, eating and drinking normally costs half of it. A family usually has 4 or 5 people. Your Iron Mountain gang collected 2 taels of silver per person. That means you received nearly 10 taels of silver from that family. If the White Horse gang charged another year's money, how much would we have left? Second leader, how are our clansmen supposed to live? Tung Shan was the leader of the clan's hunting squad. The clan gave him a monthly salary of 10 silver taels, which was 120 silver taels a year. This was the highest salary in the entire village. The leader of the hunting squad, the great spear master, and the number 1 blacksmith had the highest monthly salary. Normally, the strong men in the clan only received 1 silver tael per month, which was 12 silver taels a year. This was considered not bad among the commoners. In a family, a strong man had to support the women, children, and elderly. The women farmed, besides providing for the family's food, could only receive 2 or 3 silver taels. A family's annual income wasn't high. In the past, Tung Jia village's clansmen could live a good life just by paying the White Horse gang's annual salary. However, if they paid the Iron Mountain gang's annual salary, then in the future, food and drink would become a problem. Don't talk nonsense. The second leader, who was sitting high on the horse, had a gloomy expression. That greatly village can afford to pay 2 silver taels per person, but you can't? Qingshan. Tung Yunlong pulled Tung Qingshan's arm and approached Tung Qingshan. He lowered his voice and whispered, "This second leader's strength is too strong. With 1 hammer, he destroyed the main gate of our village. He definitely has the strength of 10,000 jin and is not someone to be trifled with. We will temporarily endure the 4,000 silver taels and hand it over first. The White Horse gang and the Iron Mountain gang will definitely have a winner one day." This old man is right. The second leader laughed and said, "Our Iron Mountain gang and the White Horse gang will definitely have a winner. When the time comes when the White Horse gang is finished, our Iron Mountain gang will also lower our annual salary. We also know how to make a steady stream." Tung Yunlong's expression changed. He lowered his voice, thinking that the second leader couldn't hear him. He didn't expect that the second leader could hear him clearly. "Wait until the White Horse gang is finished, then lower the annual salary?" Tung Qingshan's heart was filled with anger. Who knew how long it would take for the 2 big gangs to determine a winner? In the past, it wasn't unheard of for gangs to compete for more than 10 years. "Second leader, this time we can endure and gather together this sum of silver. But next time, what about our village?" The inner strength in Tung Qingshan's body rushed from his legs into the ground and burst forth in the direction of the mounted gangsters. Immediately, the ground shook violently. Rumble. From under Tung Qingshan's feet, the ground cracked open and extended in the direction of the mounted gangsters. This caused the war horses to jump in fright. Nay, nay. The war horses dashed chaotically, and many mounted gangsters fell off their horses. The group of mounted gangsters was in a state of panic, but the second leader's expression slightly changed. He thought to himself, "This brat has such a strong inner strength." The curved cracks on the training field appeared very sinister. Tung Qingshan stared at the second leader with a sharp gaze and said in a low voice, "Second leader, I hope you can give our Tung Jia village a way out. P.S. Yes, don't forget the recommendation ticket." Chapter 52. The eyes of the second leader of the Scarlet Flame Horse Gang flashed as he thought to himself, "This boy named Tung Qingshan is really strong. Plus, the people in his city are extremely tough. If we force him too much, the Tung Jia village's group of boorish mountain men might really make a move." Previously, when they slaughtered the Blackwood village, many brothers of the Iron Mountain Gang died. If we make a move today, I'm afraid that more than half of the 1,000 brothers I brought with me will die. Tung Jia village's reputation for bravery spread far and wide. Today, the second leader also discovered that Tung Jia village actually had an inner strength expert, which made him fearful. If a village with an inner strength expert really fought, even if the 1,000 bandits won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. The battle between the Iron Mountain Gang and the White Horse Gang was imminent. Losing a large number of people in Tongjia village was really not worth it. As soon as Tung Qingshan finished speaking, the ground shook and cracked. Many people of Tongjia village secretly rejoiced as they looked at the leader of the bandits. The bandits of the Iron Mountain Gang also looked at their second leader. Now, everyone was waiting for the second leader to speak. The second leader laughed loudly and stared fiercely at Tung Qingshan. Good skills. Seeing little brother's skills, my hands are also itching. Why don't we compare notes? Compare notes. The people of the Tung clan all looked at Tung Qingshan. Qingshan, don't go, Tung Yunlong said in a low voice. This second leader definitely has many tricks up his sleeves. His inner strength is also very amazing. He smashed the gate of Tongjia village with one hammer. He is not someone to be trifled with. If he is ruthless during the competition, Qingshan, you are still young. Not only was Tung Yunlong worried, but Tung Yongfan and Yuanlan were also extremely worried about their son. In their eyes, the second leader was a wily old fox with a lot of schemes. Their son had always been wandering in East City and had seen a few inner strength experts. Father, mother, grandfather, it's okay. The second leader is a senior expert. He won't argue with a kid like me. Tung Qingshan smiled and walked over with his long spear in hand. He cupped his hands and said, I heard that second leader's martial prowess surpasses others and smashed the gate of my Tongjia village with one strike of your hammer. I'm also itching to try. Haha, what a straightforward man. The second boss laughed out loud. Just based on your promise to spar, the reduction of the annual allowance is just a matter of a single word. Come, little brother, be careful. With that, the second in command jumped down from the horse with 2 red copper hammers in his hands. Get out of the way, the second boss shouted. Immediately, the mounted gangsters on the training grounds pulled on their reins and ordered the war horses to move to the side, revealing an empty space that was 200 feet wide. In the center of the open space, there was only the second leader, who held 2 huge red copper hammers in his hands. When the second leader dismounted from his horse, the Tung clansmen realized that the second leader's body was extremely sturdy. Under the illumination of the sun, this bald, strong man looked like he was cast from iron. With the red copper hammers in his hands, he looked like a demon god. Qingshan, don't be reckless. Your life is more important. Tung Yunlong looked at his grandson, feeling slightly worried and nervous. Tung Qingshan smiled at his relatives and then, with the wrought iron long spear in his hand, strode towards the open space in the center of the training grounds. The second leader was as sturdy as a demon god. Although Tung Qingshan's body could barely be considered sturdy, compared to the second leader, he was obviously one size smaller. After all, Tung Qingshan was only slightly more than 7 chi, 8 meters, while the second leader was half a head taller than Tung Qingshan, and his waist was much thicker. The two of them faced each other in the open space. Please. The second leader cupped his hands. Please. Tung Qingshan also cupped his hands. Be careful. The second leader tapped his feet and charged towards Tung Qingshan like an arrow released from a bow. At the same time, the iron chain in his right hand began to dance. One of the red copper hammers spun rapidly above the second leader's head like a wheel of wind and fire. The moment he neared Tung Qingshan, the second leader suddenly released his right hand. Whoosh! The revolving crimson copper hammer was like a flowing light, carrying a sharp whistling sound as it smashed towards Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan, who had been standing still, had a cold glint in his eyes. The wrought iron spear in his hand drew an arc like a dragon and slightly touched the red copper hammers. The red copper hammers immediately changed direction and deviated to the side. Stomp! Whoosh! Tung Qingshan rushed forward and the wrought iron long spear in his hand pierced towards the second leader's chest like a black lightning. Good spear technique, the second leader shouted. The iron chain coiled and actually wrapped around Tung Qingshan's spear. At the same time, he rushed forward and waved the red copper hammers in his hand, smashing towards Tung Qingshan's head. Tung Shan was also surprised by his opponent's coiling of the iron chain. It looked like a simple coiling, but it could be done so quickly without affecting the two red copper hammers. It would be difficult to do so without years of hard work. Break! Tung Shan shouted. The long spear in Tung Shan's hand shook violently and smashed the second leader's waist along with the iron chain. The second leader was smashed into the air and the iron chain loosened. Tung Shan hastily took advantage of the situation and withdrew his long spear. With a tap of his feet, he flew up and thrust his spear towards the second leader in midair. Mountain blasting hammer. The second leader's face was flushed, and he suddenly shouted. The red copper hammers in his right hand made a strange sound as they cut through the air and smashed towards the wrought iron spear. The hammer smashed down as if a 10,000 gene boulder had smashed down, making it impossible to resist. Tung Shan was in the air, but the long spear in his hand was like a venomous snake. It stabbed at the side of the red copper hammers. With a clang, the wrought iron spear turned at the moment of contact. Pursuing shadow spear art. Puff! The long spear stabbed towards the second leader's chest. But who would have thought that when the second leader smashed the red copper hammers, he also smashed the red copper hammers in his left hand? Clang! When Tung Shan deflected the hammer, the second leader turned his body in the air and took the opportunity to grab the shaft of Tung Shan's spear with his right hand. Let go! The second leader shouted. Tung Shan only felt a powerful inner strength passing through the spear shaft. The strength in Tung Shan's hand suddenly increased. A 10,000 gene force was imbued into the spear shaft and acted on the second leader's hand along the spear shaft. The second leader only felt a sudden pain in his right hand. He couldn't help but let go of the spear shaft. He immediately circulated his inner strength and fell down at an extremely fast speed. The second leader's left hand was holding the iron chain and dragging the two copper hammers. His right hand was slightly trembling with a burning pain. Grabbing my spear shaft. You are really courting death. Tung Shan thought in his heart. When he reached the unity of man and spear, the long spear was equivalent to Tung Shan's limbs. If he wanted to make Tung Shan let go of the long spear, wouldn't it be equivalent to breaking his limbs? How could it be so easy? Yeah, the second leader's face was ferocious. Both of his hands held the handles of the red copper hammers. With a roar, he brandished the 200 gene red copper hammers and instantly rushed in front of Tung Shan. 18 mountain blast hammers. A roar sounded in the sky above the training field. The two red copper hammers, one after another, were like an endless river. The strength of each hammer was stronger than the previous one. Shan, the Tung Jia village clansmen, and the mounted gangsters were all dumbstruck. The speed of the red copper hammers was so fast that they could barely see the shadows. The shadows of the hammers were fast and dense like an erupting flood. Clang, 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 the dense sounds of collisions rang out. The shadows of the long spear and the red copper hammers were so dense that people couldn't see them clearly. Bang! The sounds of collisions suddenly disappeared. Phew! Tung Shan's entire body was thrown up and immediately fell to the ground. His face was flushed as he cupped his hands and said, "Second leader's strength is amazing. I admit defeat." The second leader's face was also flushed. After retrieving the two hammers, he carefully sized up Tung Shan. He then laughed and said, "Good. You really have good skills. Within the territory of East City, there are no more than 10 people who can withstand my 18 mountain blast hammers and survive. You are one of them. I, Wang Taifeng, will treat you, Tung Shan, as a friend. Since we are friends, I, Wang Taifeng, will also give you face. Your Tung Jia village. Each person pay a string of coins, and this matter will be over," the second leader said straightforwardly. Second leader is indeed forthright. Tung Shan also laughed. "Grandfather." Tung Shan turned his head and looked over. Hearing that each person would pay a string of coins, Chief Tung Yunlong immediately pooled the money with the surrounding people. With each person paying a string of coins, Tangjia village only needed to pay 200 taels of silver. After all, 10 strings of coins were only 1 tael of silver, which was much lower than the annual payment of the White Horse Gang. His father, Tung Yongfan, immediately delivered the 200 taels of silver. Accept the annual payment, the second leader ordered. Immediately, a mounted gangster accepted the 200 taels of silver. Brother Qing Shan, when will you come to my Iron Mountain gang? I will definitely entertain you with good meat, wine, and beautiful women. Today, I won't stay any longer. Brothers, let's go. The second leader, Wang Taifeng, leaped onto the Scarlet Flame horse and immediately led the group of mounted gangsters away, quickly disappearing from sight. On the road far away from Tangjia village, the mounted gangsters were densely packed. Second leader, a young man riding an azure maned horse, hastily said, "Are we just going to let that kid go like this?" Humph. The second leader snorted and scolded. How old is he? He's already so powerful and can teach such a powerful disciple. Do you think his teacher is weak? The less trouble, the better. Now is the crucial time to fight against the White Horse Gang. It's not good to make more enemies. The second leader is right. The young man hastily flattered. The second leader lowered his head and looked at his chest. There was a hole in his clothes. Thinking back to the previous scene, the second leader couldn't help but be scared to the point that his back was drenched in sweat. This Tung Qing Shan received my 18 mountain hammer strikes and still had the strength to kill me. Today I really walked in front of the king of hell. If this Tung Qing Shan didn't care about my big brother and the 3,000 brothers of my Iron Mountain gang, I'm afraid I would have really died today. The previous scene happened too fast. Outsiders couldn't see it clearly, but the second leader knew. It seemed that Tung Qing Shan had been thrown into the air in the end, admitting defeat. But in reality, Tung Qing Shan had pierced his clothes with his spear, but then withdrew his spear and took the initiative to retreat and throw him into the air, pretending to have lost. At that moment, Tung Qing Shan could have killed him. Since the other side gave him face, the second leader would not give him face either. That's why he only took 1 string of coins from each person. Moreover, if they really fought, even if he slaughtered Tung Jia village, not many of his 1,000 men would survive. The most important thing was that he himself wouldn't survive. P.S. Everyone, what do you think? Should Tung Qing Shan kill the second leader or not kill him for now? Chapter 53. Tung Jia village was in a state of jubilation. Everyone in the village first rebuilt the main gate, and that night, the entire village held a banquet to celebrate on the training field. In the past few days, the Iron Mountain Gang had already gone to many villages to collect the annual tribute. The clansmen of Tung Jia village were all worried the arrival of the Iron Mountain Gang would bring about terrifying consequences. The unknown is the most frightening thing. However, the result today was a joyous one. 200 taels of silver was used to settle this matter, and not a single person from the clan died. Wasn't this a joyous occasion? Haha, Qing Shan. Tung Yunlong held his wine cup. My heart was in my throat the entire time today, but that's great. 200 taels of silver was settled. Without the threat of the Iron Mountain Gang and the White Horse Gang, my Tung clan can live a good life in any city. In this world, being able to eat their fill and wear warm clothes was already considered a good life for the Tung Jia village clansmen. It's all thanks to Qing Shan today. Tung Yongxiang, who was at the side, also raised his cup with a smile. Qing Shan, come, let Uncle toast you. You saved my life. Tung Qing Shan stood up and raised his cup. The group of people in charge of Tung Jia village sat at the same table. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 different dishes, Tung Yunlong opened his mouth and said, "Everyone can see that this mountain cannot hold 2 tigers. The Iron Mountain Gang and the White Horse Gang will definitely continue to fight. Our city's following days will be more chaotic." Yes, Tung Yongfan nodded. The Iron Mountain Gang left today, but everyone has to train harder. Also, we have to be more vigilant. And Qing Shan, you better not enter the Great Yin Mountain to train during the day. If he wanted to train hard, he should go early in the morning. It would be best if he could return within 2 to 4 hours. Or in the evening, Tung Yunlong said. Tung Qingshan also nodded. I know, grandfather. Tung Qingshan knew that it would take at least 4 hours for the bandits to reach Tung Jia village. Moreover, the bandits had to rush back to their lair before nightfall, because in ancient times, there was no electricity. Once the sky turned dark, it would really be pitch black. Unless the moon was very round that night, hundreds of thousands of men and horses advancing in the dark was truly a living hell. That was why Tung Yunlong said that. After all, Tung Qingshan was the #1 expert in the clan. If it wasn't for Tung Qingshan today, the Tung Jia village would have probably been squeezed out of 10,000 taels of silver. Time quietly passed by. Everything was as Tung Yunlong had predicted. Within the borders of East City, with the White Horse Gang and the Iron Mountain Gang, these two great gangs, it was impossible for peace. The White Horse Gang and the Iron Mountain Gang both suffered great losses from the repeated confrontations and massacres. The White Horse Gang had a lot of manpower, and they also possessed a large amount of money in reserve. However, the 3 leaders of the Iron Mountain Gang were all powerful experts. The great leader, Wang Taizhan, had killed countless experts with a single mountain-splitting saber. The second leader, Wang Taifeng, had 2 scarlet copper hammers. Some people even said that the scarlet copper hammers were dyed red with blood. The third leader, Wang Taihai, wielded a fine iron long spear and was known as the #1 expert in spear techniques in East City. These 3 brothers clearly knew of the prestige of the White Horse Gang's Master Hong Si, yet they still dared to establish a gang in East City. If they didn't have a few tricks up their sleeves, how would they dare to do so? In particular, they had recruited some inner-strength warriors from all over the world. Although these inner-strength warriors had average strength, they were very powerful when dealing with horse thieves and bandits. The Iron Mountain Gang was aggressive and extremely ruthless. But what about the White Horse Gang? Master Hong Si was already over 70 years old. Although he was at the peak of the post-liminary realm, he had not yet stepped into the innate realm. His body's functions naturally declined, and he was afraid of being young and strong. Master Hong Si had some confidence against one of the 3 Wang brothers. However, against 3 of them, it was not possible. Although the White Horse Gang also had 3 leaders, the other 2 leaders were much weaker than Master Hong Si in terms of strength. Although he was also an inner strength expert, he was still slightly inferior to the infamous 3 Wang brothers. However, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. How could the White Horse Gang's 8,000 warriors be a joke? Moreover, Master Hong Si's son, the young master, was now over 30 years old and was at his strongest. He was also known as the second expert of the White Horse Gang, second only to Master Hong Si. The 2 gangs had been fighting for many years. Tung Jia village's days were peaceful. In the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. There were only a few days left before the annual sacrifice. In Tung Qingshan's home, Sister Alan, your Qingshan will be 16 in a few days. He can also find a wife. A woman smiled as she pulled her mother Yuanlan's hand. My niece, little Yuan, can be said to be the flower of our greatly village. She is 15 this year and hasn't been an adult for long. She and your Qingshan are a match made in heaven. Men reached adulthood at 16 and women reached adulthood at 14. Normally, when a man reached adulthood, he could find a wife. I have never seen little Yuan before. What is her personality like? Yuan Lan was slightly moved. That goes without saying. You can ask around. Little Yuan is definitely a dutiful and good child. In the future, she will definitely be filial to her parents-in-law. Moreover, what can't she do at home? The woman hastily said. A pretty girl, who had been listening at the side, wrinkled her nose and snorted. Second mother, my brother's looking for a wife, but not just anyone will be accepted. At the very least, she will have to go through me. In the past few days, the number of matchmakers that came to our house has almost flattened our doorstep. My brother has to choose carefully. Qing Yu, this child. The woman laughed. That's right. Qing Shan is one of the few heroes in East City. Which girl wouldn't want to marry such a man? Of course. Qing Yu proudly raised her head. However, speaking of which, in the past 2 years, whenever one of the men in our Tengjia village becomes an adult, many girls from other villages want to marry into our village. The woman also chuckled. Many matchmakers have come to my second child. Not to mention your Qing Shan. After all, Qing Shan is our Tengjia village's #1 hero. Because of the war between the White Horse Gang and the Iron Mountain Gang, especially the oppression of the Iron Mountain Gang, this caused the lives of many villages to be difficult. In comparison, Tengjia village, which used to have a good life, became even better. Many girls from the surrounding villages wanted to marry into Tengjia village. As for Teng Qingshan, he was the village's #1 hero. He was famous for having the strength of 10,000 jin, being able to kill a pack of wolves at the age of 10, and so on. All kinds of rumors caused the imaginations of many girls from other villages to run wild. After all, in this era, people admired those brave men the most. Suddenly, the courtyard's door creaked open, and a young man holding an iron spear strode in. Brother. Qing Yu hastily stood up and ran out. Qing Shan is back. The woman immediately stood up and greeted him enthusiastically. Second mother. Teng Qing Shan also smiled. It's already noon. Second mother can eat lunch here. No. The woman saw that Teng Qing Shan seemed to be a bit uneasy and hastily smiled. My family's lunch is almost ready, so I'll go back first. Sister Lan, you have to think about what I said. My niece, little Yuan, is really a good girl. She's definitely not bad. Mother Yuan Lan also smiled as she saw the second mother off. Another matchmaker. Teng Qing Shan smiled helplessly. Brother, I see that you're very happy today. What's the big happy event? Qing Yu and Teng Qing Shan were siblings, so it was easy to see that Teng Qing Shan was especially happy today. You can even see that? Teng Qing Shan smiled. Of course. Don't you know who I am? I'm the sister of our Tengjia village's #1 hero. Teng Qing Yu giggled. Yes, there's a happy event, but you wouldn't understand even if I told you. Oh, father is back. Let's get ready for lunch. Teng Qing Shan was in a very good mood today. Starting from 2 years ago, Teng Qing Shan would go into the mountains every morning when the sky was still dark. He would carry huge rocks and run in the mountains to train. After an hour, he would come back for breakfast. During the day, Teng Qing Shan would stay in the village and practice Xing martial arts or spear arts. But today, he finally broke through the last barrier. I didn't expect that the stronger the body, the more difficult it is to open the meridians. However, I finally opened the last branch meridian. From today onwards, all the meridians in my body will be unblocked. Teng Qing Shan felt carefree. After 2 years of training, Teng Qing Shan's strength was even stronger than 2 years ago. Every aspect of his body had improved. Of course, the improvement was not as much as the 4 years of the strongest plan. My current strength has increased by about 30% compared to 2 years ago. But who would have thought that I still can't reach the bottom of the Frost Jade Pool? Teng Qing Shan thought to himself. Today, my meridians are completely unblocked. Tomorrow, I will start practicing Xing martial arts Grandmaster Ultimate Technique Godly Tiger Form Technique. When my strength has greatly increased, I will go explore the Frost Jade Pool again. Qing Shan, his father, Teng Yongfan, sat down and prepared to eat lunch. I saw your second mother on the way here. Brother Fan, you saw her too? His mother, Yuan Lan, put the bowl on the table and said with a smile, she is matchmaking for one of her nieces. Our Qing Shan will be of age in a few days. There are a lot of girls who want to marry him. All of them are as beautiful as flowers. Qing Shan, what do you think? When do you plan to get married? Teng Yongfan picked up his chopsticks and asked. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.